Chapter 1064. Ancestor Janine. It's Ancestor Janine. Greetings, Ancestor Janine. Countless experts in the Golden Light Imperial City looked at the old figure standing in the sky in horror. Their eyes were filled with indescribable shock. Diao Janine, the ancestor of the Condor clan, was the true overlord of the demon origin world. It was said that he became an emperor god when he was 200 years old in an honorable realm when he was 700 years old. Now, he was a 9th grade honorable realm expert when he was 1,000 years old. No one in the entire demon origin world dared to compete with him. However, Ancestor Janine had long stopped caring about worldly affairs and focused on pursuing the Tao. Why did he suddenly come out of seclusion today? Could it be because of the thunderclouds in the sky? I wonder which lord has come to our demon origin world. I am Diao Janine of the Golden Light Empire. Greetings, Lord. Then, a terrifying scene appeared. The Condor clan's ancestor, who had always been gloomy and overbearing, suddenly bowed to the thunderclouds in the sky and did not get up for a long time. Buzz! Right when everyone's brows were tightly knit together and their expressions were filled with bewilderment, a resonant sword howl suddenly resounded in the 9 heavens. A ray of clear light pierced through the darkness, and a shocking sword intent suddenly fell. It carried an unparalleled power that could kill thousands of enemies and fell on Diao Janine's head. How could it be? At this moment, the Condor clan's ancestor, who had lived for thousands of years, suddenly changed his expression. However, just as he was about to release his spiritual brilliance and resist the attack, he saw countless strange phenomena appear in the sky where the sword light passed. Time stopped, and the heavenly Tao no longer existed. What he saw was only a sword was left in the world. It could kill immortals and Buddhas and demons. Even with Diao Janine's strength, he felt infinitely small at this moment. It was as if he would enter the cycle of reincarnation after the sword fell, and his Tao would disappear forever. Karma was severed, and everything was empty. Everything in the past was just an illusion. Death had become a kind of release. The spiritual brilliance on Diao Janine's body dimmed in an instant. After that, everyone watched with their mouths agape as the sword radiance flashed and disappeared. Ancestor Zhen Ying's figure fell from the sky without a trace of vitality left on his body. How could it be? The entire Golden Light Empire fell into a dead silence. There was nothing but fear on everyone's face. Furthermore, even the Eagle Emperor could only stare blankly at the corpse on the ground, not daring to show any signs of anger or disobedience. He could feel that the moment the sword light descended, the apocalypse had already begun. The ancient warship came to a halt as a black-robed figure walked out, soaring through the air. Beneath his feet was a sea of stars that stretched for thousands of miles. True dragons floated among the clouds, and the sun and moon were no more than 3 inches away from his eyes. Boundless immortal radiance started to rise and fall, and a myriad of rays of light illuminated the sky. That was a youth. His hair was tied up in black clothes, and his immortal appearance was exceptional. That pair of long and narrow eyes contained a trace of coldness, like the deepest abyss in the 9 heavens. When one looked into those eyes, it was not fear, but eternal damnation. Immortals? Some experts began to kneel on the ground and pray in a low voice. Following that, countless figures prostrated themselves on the ground, their bodies trembling as they sobbed softly. On the other hand, Jedahen's mouth was agape with shock and despair written all over his face. Because at this moment, he saw that the young man was holding a chain in his hand, and on the other end of the chain was an extremely familiar face. Young Master Moi. How could it be? Even though he had never been to the upper realm, he knew that the Hidden Shao clan was a true ancient clan of the Azure continent. There was an existence at the peak of the human world in this clan. How could it be? The young master of the ancient clan, who was like a god in his eyes and had given him supreme dignity, was now being held by another young man, like an animal? Who exactly was this young man? Master. Xiaopa closed his eyes in despair as tears streamed down his face. Ling Xiao frowned slightly. He turned to look at the young girl, trapped in the golden silk spirit cage, and sighed softly. Is this the Tao you've attained? Compassion? Ling Xiao turned his head and looked deeply at Yao Guang, only to see that the Brahma Bodhisattva's face was also a little angry at this moment. The red lotus between his eyebrows bloomed with dense blood-red radiance, which was inexplicably evil. Xiao Mai, look at what you've done. Ling Xiao clenched his fist and pulled Xiao Mai's figure in front of him. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Xiao Mai looked around blankly. The moment he saw Xiao Yu, his eyes widened and his face turned pale. You decide. Ling Xiao landed on the ground and waved his hand, shattering the golden silk spirit cage. A smile immediately bloomed on Xiao Po's face as he stared at Xiao Yu, afraid that he would scare her. Yu, let's go. Big brother is here to pick you up. From now on, no one can bully you anymore. Brother. Xiao Yu curled up at the side of the spirit cage, her pale face filled with fear. However, in the face of Xiao Po's outstretched palm, she mustered her courage and walked towards him step by step. Until, the moment the brother and sister's palms touched, Xiao Yu's face revealed a silly smile. Brother, Yu. Xiao Pa gently pulled the young girl into his embrace, his tears flowing uncontrollably. I'm sorry. Big brother didn't protect you well. Brother, master. Xiao Pa shed tears and looked at Ling Xiao pitifully. I want to ask you for something, speak. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently, not surprised at all by the scene before him. After returning to the clan and seeing his sister living in a dog's kennel, the next thing he would do was destroy the world in fury. I want this royal family to pay the price. This royal family? Ling Xiao frowned lightly. According to his way of thinking, everyone in this world that had seen Xiao Yu being humiliated deserved death. However, since Xiao Po was unwilling to implicate the innocent, he was unwilling to expose his demonic nature in front of Yao Guang. Thus Ling Xiao stretched out a finger and pointed to the sky. At this moment, all the experts and vassals of the Golden Eagle barbarian race raised their heads in confusion and looked under the blue sky. In the next moment, under the thunder clouds, armored figures stepped over in an orderly manner and stood at the peak of the sky. They were densely packed like divine soldiers descending from the sky. It was silent. At this moment, Condor was horrified to discover that the aura of any one of the tens of thousands of figures was actually above his, the leader of the Condor race. Before descending, Ling Xiao had already learned from Xiao Mai about the limits of the heavenly Tao in this realm. He could enter the sage realm, which was why he dared to descend so brazenly. Otherwise, just the battle intent of these 10,000 demon guards would be able to easily destroy most of the Azure Sky lower realm. As far as I can see, anyone with the bloodline of the Condor race will not be spared. Ling Xiao's voice was cold and resolute. The moment he finished speaking, the 10,000 black demon guards immediately descended from the sky, transforming into a black torrent that swept towards the Golden Light Empire. In an instant, killing intent rose from all directions. Wails filled the air, and a bloody mist rose for thousands of miles, turning the sky of the Golden Light Empire into a sea of blood. Xiao Pa held Xiao Yu in his arms and looked coldly at the fleeing figures in despair. His expression was indifferent, and he no longer had his usual playful appearance. Yu, did you see that? Those who humiliated you are all dead. In the future, no one can bully you anymore. Chapter 1065. Amitabha. Yao Guang sighed softly. She slowly closed her eyes and senses as if she wanted to escape from the bloody scene in front of her. However, when she thought of the helplessness and fear in the eyes of the girl in the cage, she suddenly realized that it might not be a bad thing to have her Buddha's heart broken. Only then could she truly see the good and evil in this world. Although Ling Xiao's actions were too cruel, he was right. If there was no bottom line for compassion, there would only be more Xiao Yu in this world. She would suffer all kinds of torture and live a life of loneliness. This girl was undoubtedly lucky. She had a brother who loved her, and her brother was Ling Xiao's follower. However, other people might not be so lucky. Thinking about it this way, what Ling Xiao did today was actually a good deed. Let's go. It's time for the Xiao clan to give us an explanation. Ling Xiao turned around and looked deeply at Xiao Tong. However, he saw that the chosen one suddenly knelt on the ground with red eyes. My lord, I have no way to repay your kindness today. My lord, you could take my life for the rest of my life at any time. Hearing that, Ling Xiao waved his hand and stepped out towards the upper realm. From the beginning to the end, Xin Yuan Weiyang did not say a word. Although she was also somewhat fearful, seeing Ling Xiao's coldness and dominance was completely different from the gentle young master she had seen before. However, she felt inexplicably at ease. Seeing him made her feel at ease. My lord! Xiao Tong clenched his teeth and tried hard not to cry out loud. He raised his head and looked at the peerless figure in black. It was engraved in his heart before he got up and chased after him. This scene eventually became Xiao Tong's only obsession for the rest of his life. Even if the epic changed and he controlled the river of time, the only thing in his heart was still this apocalypse and that gentle and peerless figure standing in front of everyone. Unfortunately, boom, the demon origin world was filled with massacres. Countless spiritual lights bloomed in the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. And this dynasty that had ruled the demon primordial world for 300 years was finally annihilated today. Not a single person was left. Even those who had submitted to this clan were unable to escape death. They were all massacred. Boundless blood qi transformed into a blood cloud that enveloped the surroundings, shocking the surroundings. But at this moment, no one dared to rashly step into the Golden Light Empire for fear of attracting unnecessary killing. It wasn't until the ancient void ship took off and quietly left that someone mustered the courage to step into the temple. However, the scene in front of him scared him out of his wits. Corpses were strewn all around the temple, and blood flowed like a sea. Regardless of whether it was the Eagle Emperor or the Golden Condor Grandmaster, they were all killed by someone. What was even more frightening was that there was no sign of struggle in the entire temple. It was as if the Golden Eagle clan was willing to be slaughtered at this time. The treasure pavilion of the Divine Palace had also been cleaned out. Even the Qinkuan bags on the bodies of the Golden Condor Patriarch and the others had disappeared without a trace. Inexplicably, some people began to panic. They quietly retreated and no longer dared to take half a step into the temple. Xiao Clan Hall. At this moment, at the top of the hall, an elder in a gray robe with a ruddy complexion sat on the main seat. He looked coldly at the various elders of the Xiao clan below him. Xiao Shan, look at what you have done. This person was called Xiao Yu. He was the fourth ancestor of the Xiao clan and a seventh-grade earthly sovereign. When Ling Xiao broke the protective clan array of the Xiao clan, this ancestor of the Xiao clan had already awakened. However, when he saw the 10,000 black demon guards, he didn't dare to show himself. He was afraid that the Ling people would misunderstand. Compared to Xiao Shan and the others, Xiao Yu was a sovereign who had lived for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years. In his heart, he was even more in awe of the Ling people. Ancestor. Xiao Shan's face was filled with fear. Today, 6 supreme talents of his lineage had died at the same time. Once he was removed from his position as the clan leader, he might completely fall into dire straits. Ling people, if the young lord wants an explanation, then hand over the sacred weapon of your lineage to him. Xiao Yu snorted coldly. A sacred weapon was a foundation even in the entire Xiao clan. However, it was not unacceptable for the Xiao clan to end this dispute. Now that Xiao Moi was crippled, reality proved that this supreme talent did not have the strength to lead the entire Xiao clan back to its peak. In that case, there was nothing to feel regretful about. I'm afraid a sacred weapon is not enough. However, just as Xiao Shan was pondering, a cold laugh suddenly came from outside the hall. Ling Xiao walked over. Beside him, Xiao Moi was crawling on the ground with a terrified expression. His mind was in a mess. Xiao Pe, Yao Guang, and Xin Yuan Weiyang followed closely behind him, and their faces carried a wisp of coldness. Especially Xin Yuan Weiyang. Originally, with her personality, she would not easily show hostility to anyone. But now, looking at Xiao Mai being tortured by the young master, she felt inexplicably comfortable. Master Ling Xiao. In the hall, the eyes of many Xiao clan experts trembled. Their faces were filled with suppressed anger and hatred. The dignified young master of the Xiao clan was now being led around by Ling Xiao like an animal. If such a humiliation were to spread out, the reputation of the entire Xiao clan would be swept to the ground. Master Ling Xiao, a sacred weapon, is already the sincerity of the Xiao clan. Young master, please be magnanimous and let Mai go. Xiao took a deep breath and said calmly, if this is the attitude of the Xiao clan, then all right. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. Suddenly, he waved his hand and smashed it on Xiao Mai's head. Immediately, blood spurted out. The pitiful young master of the Xiao clan did not even have time to react before he was killed by Ling Xiao. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Son of Destiny. You have obtained 3,000 luck points and 30,000 villain points. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Son of Destiny. You have obtained an additional reward, Woeful Firebody. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Son of Destiny. You have obtained an inferior sacred weapon, Immortal Binding Chains. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Son of Destiny. You have obtained an 8th grade Aura Concealing Talisman. Can conceal one's aura for 6 hours. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Son of Destiny. You have obtained 3% of Destiny Forging points. Let's go. Ling Xiao casually threw the chains in the hall and turned to walk out of the hall. Xiao Yu's face was hideous. He gritted his teeth, but he did not dare to act rashly. With the background of the Ling people, it was impossible that Ling Xiao did not have any trump cards to protect his life. Even if a heavenly sovereign wanted to kill Xiao Yu, there was a high probability that the one who would die in the end would not be Ling Xiao, let alone Xiao Yu, an earthly sovereign. Now that Ling Xiao had left in a fit of anger, the Xiao clan was in big trouble. Haha, Master Ling Xiao, why are you so angry? However, just as the four of them were about to walk out of the hall, a gentle laugh suddenly came from the void above them. A ripple spread out, and a white-robed, white-haired elder immediately revealed himself and appeared in front of Ling Xiao and the others. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes. Although the white-haired old man did not emit any aura at this time, the old man's aura was extremely powerful. However, the aura that was compatible with the heavens and earth was not something that an earthly sovereign could possess. It was obvious that the old man's cultivation had reached the heavenly sovereign level. Chapter 1066. Haha, Master Ling Xiao, please come in for a chat. The white-haired elder had a gentle expression, and there was no trace of resentment in his eyes. It was as if Xiao Mai's death was a well-deserved punishment. Seeing this scene, the corners of Ling Xiao's mouth immediately raised into a smile. As expected, the older one was the more one feared death. These old men who had lived for hundreds of thousands of years would not make a big fuss over a crippled junior. In the battle between Ling Xiao and Xiao Mai, Ling Xiao had almost crushed Xiao Mai's Taoist heart. It seemed that Xiao Mai was most likely not the main character of this generation. The Xiao clan would not risk the lives of the entire clan for him. There's nothing to talk about. The young master of the Xiao clan is cruel and tyrannical. Not only did you kill your fellow clan members, you even colluded with the brute demons to humiliate the women of your clan. How despicable. Since the Xiao clan has shown me their attitude today, I hope you won't regret it. Ling Xiao's expression was calm. He did not panic because of the white-haired elder's cultivation level. The expressions of the Xiao clan's experts changed when they heard that. That was a blatant threat. If someone else had said that, they would have been smashed to pieces. However, no one in the Xiao clan dared to move. Everyone knew that Ling people had the ability to make the Xiao clan regret it. Young master, please wait. The white-haired elder sighed softly. What they said just now cannot represent the Xiao clan. I, Xiao Tingfeng, will give you my attitude. From today onwards, I will be the young master of the Xiao clan. Xiao Shan will be demoted to the lower realm and will not be allowed to return to the clan unless summoned. Also, Master Ling Xiao, Xiao Moi humiliated your servant. He cannot escape death. How about this? As an apology, you can choose any 3 numinous treasures from the Xiao clan's treasure vault. 3. Senior, I suspect that you look down on me. You think I'm doing this for the numinous treasures. Ling Xiao frowned slightly. Before he could finish a sentence, the old man had already gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, 5. Go ahead. Ling Xiao glanced at Xiao Bo. At the end of the day, compared to the 5 numinous treasures, Ling Xiao cared more about Xiao Bo's status as young master. In that case, the foundation of his clan would fall into his hands sooner or later. Master, I do not wish to stay in the Xiao clan and become a young master. But, to Ling Xiao's surprise, Xiao Bao shook his head at this moment and refused with a firm tone. Ling Xiao's eyes turned cold. He could guess what Xiao Bo was thinking. There was no point in staying in the Xiao clan. However, I've worked so hard to set up this trap. Is it appropriate for you to reject it just like that? And my lord, I want to accompany you first and wait for her emotions to stabilize before making a decision. All right, senior, don't worry. As long as despicable Xiao doesn't die, the position of young lord of the Xiao clan will be his. The white-haired old man nodded, but the words that came out of his mouth were somewhat strange. Master Ling Xiao, this way, Xiao clan's treasure vault has countless cultivation methods, elixir pills, and numinous treasures. Young master, you can choose any 5 of them today. In the end, Ling Xiao and the others arrived at an ancient stone hall in the depths of the Xiao clan's spirit mountain under the guidance of the white-haired old man. Before they even got close, they could feel an extremely terrifying fluctuation of spiritual aura. This time, Ling Xiao did not hesitate. He walked into the hall and chose 3 sacred weapons, a classic and an 8th grade elixir pill. Ancestor Ting Feng, please wait. If there's nothing else, we'll return to the Ling people first. In the void above the spirit mountain, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back at the bow of the ancient ship with a warm smile on his face. Young master, take care. Come back often when you're free. On the other hand, the 2 ancestors of the Xiao clan and the group of Saint Stage experts revealed sorrowful expressions as they bid farewell. When the ancient ship turned into a stream of light and left, the smile on Xiao Tingfeng's face froze bit by bit. Master Ling Xiao, take care. Our Xiao clan. Beside him, a Saint Realm elder was still immersed in the atmosphere when he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. He was sent flying a few hundred feet away. Ancestor. Xiao Yu's eyes were gloomy as he looked at Xiao Tingfeng with an ashen expression. Should we secretly talk to those factions that are dissatisfied with the Ling people? Today's matter was a great humiliation to the Xiao clan. Not only had their young master, Xiao Mai, been killed in public, but the Xiao clan had also taken out 3 sacred weapons, a classic, and an elixir pill to settle the matter. With the Xiao clan's strength, they did not dare to make the Ling people their enemy. However, if they secretly joined forces with the other ancient clans and immortal sects, they might be able to plot something. For example, the Longevity Sure family. Do you know who the 2 women beside the young master of the Ling people were? Xiao Tingfeng's eyes were cold as he looked up at the ancient ship disappearing into the horizon. Chaotic times had arrived. Originally, he thought that this chaotic time would definitely be brilliant and diverse, with monstrous geniuses appearing everywhere. However, he did not expect that Ling Xiao would suppress them as soon as it began. The white-haired female, monk should be Yao Wang from the Brahma Holy Land. As for the girl in white, I don't know. Xiao Yu shook his head slightly and frowned. He clearly did not understand why the ancestor would ask about the 2 women's origins. The other girl is from the Xian Yuan clan. Furthermore, the sacred blood of the human emperor flows in her body. She is most likely the current princess. Xiao Tingfeng sighed softly, while Xiao Yu's expression froze. The princess of the Xian Yuan clan? I also heard that Gu Chao Ci, one of the current sequences, is Ling Zhao's fiancé. The young master of the Foley Ace, Yi Qin Shan, is actually willing to be his maidservant. How do you think the Shao clan and the Shi family can contend with these factions? Xiao Tingfeng's expression gradually calmed down. As he blinked, an aura of vicissitudes circulated. Today, the person standing in the ancestral hall of the Shao clan was the young master of the Taigu Ling people. However, in just a few months, this young master already had the shadows of the Brahma Holy Land, the Xianyuan Imperial Clan, the Immortal Phoenix Ancient Dynasty, and the Foliaceae behind him. With the Shao clan's foundation, the Immortal Phoenix Ancient Dynasty and the Foliaceae did not need to fear them. However, the Ling people, the Buddhist land, and the Xianyuan Imperial Clan all had the power to destroy the Shao clan. Then, ancestor, you mean? I think that Ling Zhao's immortal aura is natural. Now that he has so many monsters following him, the main characters of this chaotic era are most likely him and Shuexian of the Realm Lord Palace. However, I think that Ling Xiao is more likely. Ancestor, you mean, over the past 100,000 years, although the Shao clan has accumulated some foundation, our luck has decreased instead of increasing. If only one person in the Azure world can become an immortal and suppress an era, it will most likely be Ling Xiao. Although Shuexian is talented and has the immortal Devil Ancient Bell, the Realm Lord Palace is already the highest. His Tao is already the end. However, Ling Xiao is different. He rose from nowhere and shocked the 9 heavens. If the Shao clan wants to return to the top of the world and break free from the shackles of the immortal Tao, it is not impossible to follow Ling Xiao. Xiao Tingfeng's gaze was distant. There seemed to be a glint in the depths of his eyes. Chapter 1067. Follow Ling Xiao. Ancestor, aren't you overestimating this young man too much? Xiao Yu's eyes widened. He could tell that Ling Xiao was very strong and had the ability to crush a generation. But now, the karmic luck of heaven and earth was in the hands of immortals and not humans. Even if Ling Xiao was talented, could it be that he could break the shackles of the mortal world and ascend to the immortal world? Even if he could ascend to the immortal world, hundreds of thousands of years had passed. There was probably no place for the human race there. Righteous and decisive. The last person in the human race who had such an emperor was the human emperor of Xianyuan. He sealed the heavens with his sacred blood and killed immortals. Why can't he do that? Not to mention that he has the Xianyuan princess following him now. No one knows how far they can go after thousands of years. Xiao Tingfeng sighed deeply. Fortunately, Xiao Popper was an opportunity. If the Shao clan wanted to follow Ling Xiao, it was not impossible. Next, they only needed to make Xiao Popper the young master and take sole control of the Shao clan. Then, the Shao clan and the Ling people would be completely tied together. The world was re-established, and the Shao clan would prosper. On the other side, Ling Xiao sat upright in the ancient ship. In front of him, Xiao Popper looked at Xiao Yu'er with red eyes. Master, your methods are extraordinary. Yu'er's soul is injured. I wonder if there's a chance to recover? She should have suffered a great shock that caused her mind to be in a mess. I'm afraid medicinal pills are useless. She can only recover slowly. Ling Xiao shook his head and sighed. How about this? I'll find a place for her to recuperate in peace. It's said that the Ghost Clan is proficient in the art of the soul. When I meet a great figure of the Ghost Clan in the future, perhaps I can ask about it. Thank you, Master. Xiao Popper knelt on the ground with a sincere expression. If Xiao Popper had submitted to Ling Xiao because he cherished his life, then at this moment, he had already placed his life in Ling Xiao's hands. Even if he died, he would not regret it. There's no need to be so courteous. The path to immortality is dangerous. It's better to cultivate diligently in order to protect the peace of the world. Ling Xiao looked at Yao Guang meaningfully, only to see that the latter's pretty face was slightly frozen, as if he was thinking about something. However, compared to before, the red lotus between her eyebrows seemed to have become even more beautiful. Buzz. At this moment, a buzzing sound came from Ling Xiao's Sea of Soul. Master. Chen Qingshan's voice rang out from the voice transmission talisman. With a thought, Ling Xiao immediately disappeared. Speak. In the past few days, according to your instructions, I have secretly investigated the origins and plans of the Gone Heaven Divine Sect. Yes, the Gone Tian Divine Sect is recruiting disciples. They are collecting blood spirits under the name of the Sky Demon. They seem to be raising a holy infant. The holy infant's chi is not very strong. He is only in the venerable realm, but he can use the art of Pluto to control people's minds. That sect leader Gone Tian was summoned by him and ascended. He has already entered the saint realm. Also, as far as I know, this holy infant has been looking for something called the Sky in Netherworld Plate. Oh, other than that, does the Gone Heaven Divine Sect have any other experts? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows. Controlling people's minds with a cultivation method? No matter how he heard it, it was the work of an evil demon. Holy infant? Did you hear that name? Could he be a human? However, even if the holy infant's cultivation method was strange, he could use the power of the Sky Demon to strengthen himself. He was quite clever. Of course, in the eyes of the human race, killing demons was enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. Similarly, in the eyes of demons, humans were meat to begin with. Eating them was not a sin. This world was vast and endless. All living things existed together. Righteousness and evil were just different standpoints and identities. There are also a few commanders. They are all in the first or second rank of the saint realm. Sect leader Gone Tian said that after collecting the blood spirits, the disciples will be rewarded with cultivation methods. According to my estimation, the holy infant's blood sacrifice should be coming to an end. Oh, how long will it take to collect the blood spirits? 1 month. The sooner, the better. I understand. Ling Xiao nodded calmly, but his eyes flashed with evil. The Gone Heaven Divine Sect used the Sky Demon as an excuse to create chaos in the human world. It was really infuriating. In that case, when the holy infant finished collecting the blood spirits and prepared everything, he would harvest it. Would that not be enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens? When harvesting leeks, of course, he had to wait for them to mature. However, he did not know what kind of secret was behind the holy infant. Skying underworld disc? That sounded like an evil demon's treasure. A day passed in the blink of an eye. Strangely, the news of the Shao clan's young master being killed did not spread in the Azure world. Thinking about it, this was not a glorious matter for the Shao clan. Moreover, the Shao clan's heavenly sovereign's intention was to get along with Ling Xiao peacefully. In that case, when he calmed down, it was time for him to return to the clan and become Ling Xiao's assistant. However, although the Shao clan was embarrassed, Ling Xiao wanted to show his righteousness. Did he think that if he did not say anything, no one would know about it? By Ling, send a few secret guards to various places in the Azure world. That means at the same time. Dragon Abyss Sword Tomb at the peak of the Sword Mountain. Ling Tian was dressed in a blood-red robe, and the celestial eradication sword in his hand shone with a cold light. In front of him, blood seemed to be dripping from the corner of Jun Mo's mouth, and her beautiful eyes flashed with hatred. I'm not coming anymore. Junior brother Ling Tian really has a heart of stone. Must you beat senior sister until she vomits blood every time? This, Ling Tian kept his sword and scratched his head. Didn't senior sister say that I have to go all out and not show mercy? What a blockhead. How did Yi Suner fall for you? Jun Mo glared at Ling Tian fiercely. However, the moment she finished speaking, a loud, buzzing sound came from the depths of the sword tomb, following which a ray of light suddenly bloomed and shot into the sky. Faintly, there seemed to be a divine palace at the end of the light. It was golden and dazzling, eternal and immortal. What is this? Ling Tian and Jun Mo were surprised. The two of them had not been in the sword tomb for long, and they had been comprehending the sword intent in the back of the mountain. Occasionally, they would spar with each other. From Jun Mo Wu's body, Ling Tian could feel a strong sense of resentment. However, with his temperament, he would not meddle in other people's business. On the other hand, Jun Mo would sometimes tell him some of her childhood experiences. After a while, The two of them realized that regardless of their background or experiences, they had many similarities. They agreed that when they were successful in their cultivation in the future, they would run amok in the azure world and eliminate all injustice. All disciples of the Sword Tomb come to the Sword Tomb at the back of the mountain. The voice of the Sword Master of the Dragon Abyss Sword resounded in the sky. Above the Sword Mountain, streams of light suddenly appeared and flew towards the back of the mountain. Ling Tian and Jun Mo looked at each other, and without hesitation, they left in a flash. After the two of them left, a beautiful figure in yellow walked out of the ancient forest in the distance. She looked calmly at the two of them who left side by side. Although Yi Sun had entered the Sword Tomb, she was unable to become a disciple of the Sword Master. She only followed the disciples of the Sword Tomb to practice the heart of a sword cultivator, and it was difficult for her to meet Ling Tian. Junior brother Ling Tian, in the end, I can't keep up with your footsteps. Yi Sun smiled indifferently, and a trace of disappointment flashed in her eyes. Boom, boom, boom. In the depths of the Sword Tomb, there were thousands of rays of light and 3,000 sword intents. One by one, figures descended from the sky and landed in front of an ancient tomb. The Sword Master of the Dragon Abyss Sword stood with his hands behind his back, and his eyes were deep as he looked at the tombstone in front of him that was emitting divine light. Beside him was a tall and straight young man dressed in gray and white cloth. He stood there like an unsheathed sword, emitting a piercingly cold aura that made one's heart palpitate. Chapter 1068. I didn't expect little senior brother Xiang Tian to come out of seclusion as well. Little senior brother's sword aura is getting more and more terrifying. That goes without saying. Little senior brother Xiang Tian is the most talented person in the Sword Tomb and one of the 10 sequences in the Azure Sky. He's going to become the Azure Sky Sword Celestial in the future. There weren't many disciples in the Sword Tomb. Including Ling Tian and Jun Mo, there were only about 30 people. Now that the immortal world had appeared, everyone had already gathered in front of the Sword Tomb. This ancient tomb was rumored to be the place where the 9 Heavens Sword Celestial was buried. However, the sword intent inside was so sharp that even with the Sword Master's cultivation, it was difficult for him to enter the tomb. He had never seen the Celestial's remains before. At this moment, there was a divine stele in front of the tomb. There were countless sword marks on it, emitting endless Taoist rhymes. Since everyone is here, let's begin. The Sword Master of the Dragon Abyss Sword turned around and looked at Ling Tian and Jun Mo. According to my guess, this sword stele was carved by the Sword Celestial before he died. The scriptures on it are complicated and profound. It's not written in the Azure Sky language. It should be written in the celestial domain or ancient scriptures. However, even if you don't understand the scriptures, you can still cultivate by observing the sword intent on it. It's actually left behind by the Sword Celestial. Jun Mo covered her mouth with her hand. When she turned around again, she saw Ling Tian frowning, as if he was in deep thought. Junior brother Ling Tian? Senior sister, what did you say? Ling Tian's expression turned serious as he looked at Jun Mo blankly. Nothing, junior brother. Don't tell me you understand the scriptures on the stele. Jun Mo raised her eyebrows slightly. However, Ling Tian shook his head and sat down without saying anything else. At this moment, he could feel the terrifying heat coming from the celestial extermination sword. It was as if the scriptures on the stele were somehow related to the sword. Suddenly, Ling Tian seemed to have thought of something. It was said that this ancient sword had once killed a celestial and had a strand of celestial karma. It was just that these rumors were mostly exaggerated and not baseless. Could it be that the celestial extermination sword was really tainted by the celestial's blood and was nourished by the sword celestial's blood for tens of thousands of years? Then, who was it that killed the celestial? Accompanied by a buzzing sound, a drop of golden blood appeared in Ling Tian's soul sea. Immediately after, an ancient and vast aura began to awaken from the blood. In a short period of time, that drop of blood had evolved into tens of thousands of divine elephants. It was as if an era had repeated itself, and 800 million years of time had passed in a hurry. At the end of the epic, there was a white-robed, immortal figure. He held an ancient sword and looked up at the sky. Boom! The divine steel of the ancient tomb suddenly emitted a blinding golden light. Its impetus directly caused the thunderclouds in an area of 5,000 kilometers in the sky to surge while violent gales arose abruptly. Lightning dragon great devils were hidden in the darkness. From time to time, they would stretch out their legs, intimidating everyone. Night fell in the sore mount. Apart from the ancient talismans that seemed to be alive, there was not a single trace of light in the world. The sword master of the Dragon Abyss sword had a serious expression as he turned around to look at the disciples behind him. He noticed that besides Xiang Tian, Ling Tian, Jun Mo Wu, and Wu Nian, the other disciples had their eyes wide open. They were obviously shocked by the scene before them. Could it be that one of the four of them has comprehended the scriptures in the steel? The sword master of the Dragon Abyss sword's eyes trembled slightly. Not only was there not a trace of excitement in his heart, there was an inexplicable fear instead. This was not the first time this phenomenon had occurred in the ancient tomb. However, neither he nor Xiang Tian had comprehended the ancient words within. In other words, it was very likely that Ling Tian or Jun Mo Wu could cause such a divine elephant to descend from the sky. Both of them had devil intent in their sword hearts. Once they obtained the Sword Immortal's inheritance, it would be a calamity or fate for Qing Song. However, all the laws of the world follow karma. Now that he had accepted Ling Tian and Jun Mo Wu as his disciples, he was not willing to be someone who obstructed their path. Perhaps this chaotic world should be filled with bloodshed, and the immortals would be killed. All living things in the world had their own fate. With a single thought, there would be 3,000 karma. There was no way to determine one's own fate. Sigh. The sword master of the Dragon Abyss sword sighed softly. His originally tall and straight figure was inexplicably hunched. At this moment, he realized that his originally flawless sword heart was actually tied to this sex inheritance. Buzz. At this moment, Ling Tian's soul consciousness had already been absorbed by that drop of golden blood. He seemed to have seen a young man who started from nothing and used his unparalleled sword to prove his Tao. Under his sword, all immortals, gods, Buddhas, and demons were killed. Blood flowed for thousands of miles, and he was invincible. The white-robed man held a sword and a cup in his hand. He frowned and spoke with a thunderous voice. The immortals and demons of the 9 heavens were at ease, and the young man returned with a slash of his sword. Ling Tian's eyes trembled as he looked at the figure at the end of the long river. He watched as the ancient sword in his hand slashed down, destroying the era and suppressing 3,000 immortals and demons. Then, he slowly walked over from the end of reincarnation. At first, he was a young man with clear eyebrows and a calm smile. With one step, he turned into a white robe. His ancient sword slashed the sky, raising a bloody light. The young man raised his head and looked at the sky. There seemed to be a sword immortal bowing his head with a gratified smile. In my life, I was invincible. In order to seek the peak of the sword path, I turned into an immortal and immortal. Mortals experienced thousands of tribulations, broke through the heavens, and cultivated the 9 styles of heaven punishing. Above, they killed immortals and gods, and below, they killed all living things in order to seek the devil heart. The immortals stood high in the 9 heavens, condensed a sea of stars, forged 3,000 sword bones, and broke the ancient river. The day the mortal sword heart was forged above the heavens, fought with the immortal body, and died together to prove the Tao of invincibility. The one who obtained my opportunity covered my immortal path, experienced the mortal world, and stood at the peak of the 9 heavens. Immortals and Buddhas couldn't stop me. Thunder rumbled, and Ling Tian's eyes suddenly widened. At this moment, he finally understood that the white-robed young man and the sword immortal were actually the same person, splitting into 2 bodies. Invincibility was so lonely. It was so lonely that killing oneself to prove the Tao. At the same time, An ancient scripture suddenly appeared in Ling Tian's mind. 3,000 sore bones. Boom, boom. Boundless blood energy began to fluctuate. Outside Ling Tian's body, the laws of the great Tao interweaved into chains, forming a universe of their own. At this moment, he could feel that the bones in his body seemed to be bathed in this scripture, erupting with an indescribable divine power that was invincible and indestructible. 3 feet in front of him, invincible in the world. At this moment, the entire azure world was covered in dark clouds. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. It was like the end of the world, but also like the beginning of reincarnation. And in the depths of the ancient tomb, a wisp of immortal opportunity awakened, letting out a deafening roar as if summoning the fated one to go and experience the Tao. Thousands of miles away, Ling Xiao sat cross-legged on the ancient ship, his brows slightly raised. At this moment, he could feel that the providence value in the system was rising rapidly at a terrifying speed. It was obvious that in the providence that submitted to him, someone had obtained a great opportunity. Who could it be? In Ling Xiao's mind, the figures of Ling Tian, Chun Qingshan, and Meng Yuan alternated. However, no matter who it was, according to the providence that he obtained, there was probably going to be a peerless monster in the azure world that would shock all races. Boom! The ancient ship descended horizontally, descending from the divine battlefield. Ling Xiao, Xiao Ku, and the others walked out one after another, landing on the peak of the divine mountain. At this moment, he could see that at the foot of the divine mountain, a beautiful figure in feathered clothes was kneeling on the ground. Her eyes were filled with sincerity, and she didn't dare to move at all. Chapter 1069. Go back to the temple first, Ling Xiao said indifferently as he walked down the mountain. From the looks of it, Jin Han was determined to follow him. As long as he could solve the crisis facing the Golden Crow divine dynasty, this arrogant Golden Crow princess would submit to him. "You're Jin Han?" When Ling Xiao appeared in front of Jin Han, she was still respectfully prostrating herself on the ground, not daring to move at all. Hearing the voice, Jin Han looked up blankly. Sunlight shone on Ling Xiao from above, emitting a dazzling golden radiance, making him look like an immortal god. When they first met, they did not know the meaning of the rumors. When they met again, it was already a dream. Jin Han's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly as a charming smile bloomed on her beautiful face. "Young master, my daughter, Jin Han admires young master's righteousness. I hope young master can accept me as your servant." Finally, young master finally showed up. As expected, hard work pays off. Righteousness? Oh, I thought you admire my appearance. The thing you want is no longer with me. Go back. After saying that, Ling Xiao turned around and walked toward the mountain peak. The smile on Jin Han's face froze before it disappeared. However, just as she stood up and was about to chase after Ling Xiao, a figure descended from the sky and blocked her path. It was the reckless Devil King. Looking at the 10-foot-tall devil figure that exuded a ferocious aura, Jin Han's eyes were filled with sorrow. She bit her red lips as tears streamed down her cheeks silently. Is there really no other way? Is the Golden Crow divine dynasty really going to decline? Although Lord Ling Xiao did not deliberately humiliate her because of her previous rudeness, in the end, the divine dynasty's fortune had come to an end. Her path of cultivation was about to be turned upside down. Am I really going to marry that little turtle from the Black Tortoise divine dynasty? Jin Han looked at the tall and straight black-clad figure on the mountain peak from afar. She watched as he exuded a celestial aura with every step he took. Even though it was just his back, it was enough to make the world lose its color and the mountain wind linger. "Haha, Jin Han, where did your pride go?" In the end, Jin Han walked out of the god battle domain with a desolate look on her face. At this moment, she realized that there was no place for her to stand in this vast expanse of mountains and rivers. She wasn't even worthy of being a servant girl. Where did she get the confidence to strut around in front of him in the past? Mother, ancestor, Hunter is useless. Beep. The destined woman's Tao heart is unstable, and she is doubting herself. Congratulations to host for plundering 1,000 luck points and 10,000 villain points. On the peak of the mountain, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back. Looking at the figure that was staggering away, the corners of his mouth immediately raised into a gentle smile. Humans, only in the most desperate times would they be unswervingly loyal. Young master, above the void, demonic clouds suddenly trembled. Immediately after, the mystic butterfly's figure descended from the sky and appeared beside Ling Xiao. Let me see if you're injured. Before Ling Xiao could react, the bewitching butterfly's jade-like hand had already touched his chest, and an intoxicated expression appeared on her face. Ancestor bewitching butterfly. Ling Xiao frowned slightly, and his tone was extremely cold. The bewitching butterfly immediately smiled embarrassedly and respectfully took 2 steps back. Her expression had already returned to normal. My lord, I have already heard from the Black Demon Guards that the Shao clan is acting recklessly. How dare they imprison your servant? Ling Yuanxing and I will personally go to the Shao clan and ask them to exterminate their clan as atonement. There's no need for that. Ling Xiao shook his head slightly and looked deeply at the bewitching butterfly. You don't have to interfere with my matters. When I need Ling people, there will naturally be a chance for you to sacrifice yourselves. Yes. Seeing the demonic intent flickering in Ling Xiao's eyes, even the bewitching butterfly's delicate body trembled. At this moment, she finally saw the sky demon who once stood in the 9 heavens and looked down on all living beings. How is Hua Hua and Bai Zishi's cultivation? My lord, young lord, the 2 girls' talents are 1 in a million. They each comprehended the most profound Tao law in the world. Now, they're in seclusion and are preparing to break through to the revered realm. The bewitching butterfly's expression became serious. Originally, she had accepted Hua Hua and Bai Zishi as her disciples purely to keep them away from her lord. However, after interacting with them for a period of time, she discovered that the bloodlines of the 2 were extremely terrifying. The 9-tailed fox was originally a great demon of the primitive era. She could move unhindered in the world and bewitch all living beings. Although Bai Zishi's bloodline could not be considered pure, this girl had comprehended the space Tao law. It could be said to be the most profound of the 3,000 Tao laws. Moreover, this Tao law was more terrifying the higher one's cultivation was. He could travel thousands of miles in an instant. Wherever his thoughts and body went, it was a supreme weapon, whether it was to protect his life or to kill his enemies. As for Hua Hua, just her bloodline alone made the Sky Demon Palace's demon lord, bewitching butterfly's heart palpitate. The ancestral dragon's bloodline, the devouring Tao law. Even the bewitching butterfly had never seen the real ancestor dragon. However, she inexplicably felt a supreme demonic might that could truly soar to the 9 heavens and stand above thousands of demons from Hua Hua's body. The devouring Tao law could devour heaven and earth when cultivated to the extreme. Just where did his lord find such terrifying evildoers? And each one of them was so loyal. Suddenly, the bewitching butterfly recalled the scene hundreds of thousands of years ago when she first met the Sky Demon Lord. At that time, she was young and delicate. Her heart was filled with expectations. However, because she took an extra look at him, she fell into the wrong path and had yet to wake up. Have they reached the revered realm? Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. Indeed, with the temperament of these 2 girls, they only knew how to eat, drink, and play with him all day long. In the end, they lacked a restraint. What do you know about the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty? Ling Xiao suddenly turned his head and looked at the bewitching butterfly. In an instant, the bewitching butterfly's pretty face froze. Her red lips were tightly pursed as she felt inexplicably nervous. The Golden Crow Divine Dynasty? Young lord, it is said that this dynasty is cursed by the immortals. Those who trespass will die. Not only the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty, but also the other 3 divine dynasties. Those who trespass will die. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. Interesting. The more mysterious a place is, the more shocking the secret it hides. This is the principle of cultivation. Do you believe it? Of course, the bewitching butterfly doesn't believe it. The rumors in this world are often exaggerated. However, it is said that some immortals have fallen in this dynasty. Young lord, are you planning to? I'm going to the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty. Ling Xiao's heart moved. He left behind the pure Tao body and turned into a swan as he flew away. The figure of a golden dragon suddenly appeared under his feet. It soared into the sky and disappeared into the horizon. The bewitching butterfly's eyes trembled slightly. In the end, she did not dare to stop him. The sky demon, the ninth heaven's dark pole. What curse could threaten his life? At this time, whether it was Xianyuan Weiyang or Yao Guang, they had both entered seclusion to calm their hearts. The scene in the Xiao clan could be said to have affected the two girls greatly. Especially Xiao Yuer's encounter. It made the originally timid Xianyuan Weiyang and the compassionate Yao Guang see the true darkness of the immortal path. Perhaps Ling Xiao was right. There was no true good or evil in this world. Everything had two sides. The pinnacle of light was always the purest darkness. Although the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty could not be considered the top in the Azure world, this dynasty's legacy could be traced back to hundreds of thousands of years ago. It was rumored that the Golden Crow, Ancient Qilin, Flame Dragon, and Black Tortoise dynasties were descendants of the immortals who followed the orders of their ancestors to protect the Azure world. The royal family of the four dynasties all had bloodlines that were different from both the human race and the demon race. At this time, in the sky above the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty, the figure of a golden dragon suddenly pierced through the clouds and descended from the sky, causing endless avatars. Immortal clouds fell, and divine light filled the sky. The order of the great Tao meandered and formed a chain that spread thousands of miles of mountains and rivers. Among the thousands of divine elephants, a black-robed figure slowly walked over and landed in front of the Golden Crow Imperial Palace. Who are you? The Golden Crow Imperial Emperor, Jin Yin, was dressed in a golden robe. She took a step forward, and her sage aura surged. Her mature and charming face had a solemn expression that had never been seen before. Around the Imperial Palace, countless golden-armored guards were shocked. They held their divine halberds and glared at the young man's figure. For 100,000 years, no one had dared to come to the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty in such a flamboyant manner, except for the Realm Lord back then. This young man, where did he come from? Chapter 1070. Ling People, Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao didn't waste any time. He looked up at Jin Yin, only to see the latter's beautiful eyes narrowed, and a hint of excitement appeared on her face. So, it's the young master of the Ling people. I'm Jin Yin, the Golden Crow Emperor. Even though Jin Yin was an emperor, she still felt her heart skip a beat when she saw the calm and gentle face in front of her. No wonder the arrogant Han, was willing to be the servant of the young master of the Ling people. Although Jin Yin had tried her best to persuade Jin Han earlier that day, she knew her daughter's temperament very well. If she was unwilling from the bottom of her heart, she wouldn't kneel down and become someone's servant even if the Golden Crow dynasty was destroyed. One had to know that although the legacies of the four divine dynasties were similar, there were differences in their foundations over the past hundreds of thousands of years. The Flaming Dragon Dynasty and the Black Tortoise Dynasty were good at killing and defense, and there were endless geniuses in the dynasty. The strength of the two dynasties had long surpassed that of the ancient Qilin Dynasty and the Golden Crow Dynasty. If it weren't for the fact that they restrained each other, there probably wouldn't be the four divine dynasties now. The Black Tortoise Crown Prince had always admired Jin Han, but he still couldn't find her after chasing her for 100 years. If this girl really only cared about the safety of the Golden Crow Dynasty, marrying the Black Tortoise Crown Prince might be a shortcut. But in the end, she didn't want to be the crown princess of the Divine Dynasty and ran off to be someone's servant. The Taigu Ling people were indeed powerful and unique. However, If it weren't for Ling Zhao's peerless appearance, Hunter would definitely not be willing to accept her fate. It was supposed to be used to describe a woman. However, when Jin Yin saw the young master of the Ling people, she also felt that he was so perfect that it was almost unreal. Let's talk inside. Ling Xiao lifted his foot and walked toward the arch palace in front of him. Although he didn't emit a trace of aura, just his back view made Jin Yin, a sage, feel inexplicably fearful. He had an indifferent calmness that said he wouldn't be destroyed even if heaven and earth were to be destroyed. He was an immortal, suppressing the world. The emperor's aura had already manifested, and the human sovereign was present. Although this kind of opportunity was something that never existed in the world, Jin Yin had already made her decision the moment she saw Ling Xiao. The entire Golden Crow Imperial Palace was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. All the experts of the Divine Dynasty looked at the Golden Crow Emperor, who was bowing with fear on his face, with shock in their eyes. That's right. The Golden Crow Holy Dynasty was indeed weaker than the Shenwu Dynasty. However, it was not by luck that this Divine Dynasty and the other 3 Divine Dynasties had been able to stand tall in the Azure for 100,000 years. Everyone in the Azure firmament knew that it was the treasure that protected the 4 dynasties. How could they not be greedy? However, it was rumored that the treasure suppressed by the 4 dynasties was the most evil of the 9 heavens. Not to mention utmost exalted experts. Even martial emperors were unable to control it. Back when the celestial race ruled the 9 heavens, there were celestial race members who descended to search for the supreme treasure of this world. In the end, they unexpectedly disappeared without a trace. It was said that the place where he disappeared was the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. However, with the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty's strength, it was impossible for them to harm the most powerful celestial race member. Thus, it could be seen that it was probably because of the evil treasure suppressed by this dynasty. Later on, the Realm Lord held the celestial demon Ancient Bell and dominated this world. However, when he descended to the 4 great divine dynasties, he seemed to have sensed something and set an iron rule that no one was to attack the 4 dynasties. Those who violated this rule would be killed without mercy. The 4 great divine dynasties became the taboo of the Azure overnight. No one dared to covet their treasures anymore. It was not that Ling Xiao did not believe this rumor. However, the more dangerous a place was, the more terrifying the creation would be. The treasure suppressed by the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty was just short of being a heaven-defying supreme treasure. If he did not come, how could he live up to his reputation as a righteous man? What? You think I'm coveting the treasure of the 4 dynasties? F***CK. You've been chasing me for so long. Don't you know what I Ling Xiao am like? I'm obviously trying to help the 4 great god dynasties break free from their shackles and get rid of this threat to all living beings in the Azure continent. I'm trying to make the word taboo vanish into thin air. A scapegoat puppet, a realm, a sky supreme corpse puppet, 2 incarnations, and the true body of the sky demon. Ling Xiao did not believe that there was any curse in this world that could kill him. If there is, then I will send a clone to collect the treasure. Cough, cough, all of you can leave. Jin Yin walked into the imperial palace and looked at the young man that sat upright on the throne and all the guards and maidservants that were dumbstruck since a long time ago. She immediately coughed lightly and waved her hand to dismiss everyone. Greetings, young lord. I wonder, what is the purpose of young lord's visit? Actually, at this moment, Jin Yin had already guessed Ling Zhao's intentions. Honor had most likely become the young master's servant and obtained the young master's favor. Therefore, the young master should be here to deliver the good fortune. I heard that the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty is looking for the true reincarnation due. You even dare to touch my good fortune. Is the human world not worth it? Ling Zhao's eyes were calm, but the words that came out of his mouth made Jin Yan's expression change drastically. With a plop, she knelt on the ground. Young lord. The true reincarnation due was the immortal item that Han said could continue the dynasty's lifeline. Previously, she had gone to the Nihility region to look for this item. Because of this, she had offended Master Ling Xiao. Originally, Jin Yin thought Honor must have been moved by the young master and obtained this item. However, she did not expect that Ling Xiao would come to condemn her. It's over. The Golden Crow Holy Dynasty is over. No wonder the young master came alone and did not see Han. Could it be my son? You deserve to die. Cold sweat the size of beans flowed down Jin Yan's pretty face. In just a short moment, the green stone beneath her was wet. Buzz! Young lord, this matter. Jin Honor did not know the severity of the matter. Please forgive me, young lord. Outside the main hall, the sound of rushing wind suddenly resounded. Then the Golden Crow Patriarch, Jin Yuyang, stepped from the sky. However, he did not dare to enter the hall directly. Instead, he strode in from outside the hall and bowed to Ling Xiao. The Golden Crow Holy Dynasty was protected by a divine item, but that protection was used to suppress the item, not the Golden Crows. If Ling Xiao really wanted to destroy the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty, it would be useless even if the Golden Crow Patriarch appeared today. Forgive me? Fine, if the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty is willing to be a slave, I will forgive your clan. If not, Ling Xiao's eyes were cold, and the corners of his mouth suddenly lifted into a cold smile. However, Jin Yuyang and Jin Yuyang's bodies trembled. They looked at each other and nodded silently. The Golden Crow Holy Dynasty is willing to submit to the Ling people. Submitting to the Ling people was not a disgrace to the various forces in the Azure world. On the contrary, for an ancient dynasty like the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty, which did not have a strong foundation and was at the end of its road, it was not an exaggeration to say that it was a good fortune. Otherwise, once Jin Yuyang died, the Golden Crows would definitely be destroyed and devoured. There would be no way for them to survive. Not submitting to the Ling people, but submitting to me. Ling Xiao was not surprised by their reaction. If this ancient dynasty had not sealed a supreme treasure, and it was only a part of the supreme treasure, Ling Xiao would not have done anything unnecessary and directly destroyed it. Now that he controlled the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty, it was just a bait to plot against the four dynasties. Otherwise, once he destroyed the dynasty and stole the treasure, how different would he be from an evil demon? Remember, I, Ling Xiao, am the light of the righteous path. How could I kill the innocent? Submit to the young master? Hearing this, Jin Yuyang's eyes flashed with a hint of doubt. However, in her opinion, there was no difference between submitting to Ling Xiao and submitting to the Ling people. Therefore, she did not hesitate and immediately bowed. Yes, from today onwards, the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty will respect the young master. Open your soul sea. Chapter 1071. Open my soul sea. Jin Yang looked at Ling Xiao and then at Jin Yin. She looked even more confused. Opening one's soul sea was either to search one's soul or to plant a soul seal and make one a slave. But no matter what, they were all done by demons. The young master of the Ling people was the leader of the Qing Tsang sect and the pride of the human race. How could he? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and a cold aura surrounded him. Jin Yuyang and Jin Yin were stunned and opened their divine souls. Immediately after, the two of them felt a warm current entering their soul seas. After that, they had a strange feeling of being controlled by someone. Since the young master of the Ling people dared to come here alone, he must be confident that he could escape unscathed. Moreover, even if he asked them to kill him, they would not dare to have any killing intent. The Golden Crow Holy Dynasty had been around for hundreds of thousands of years. There were thousands of people in the imperial family. If anything happened to the young master of the Ling people, the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty would be wiped out. This branch contains vitality. It may be helpful to you. Ling Xiao threw a branch to Jin Yuyang. She took it respectfully, but there was not much expectation on her face. The end of one's lifespan was not something that could be reversed by ordinary elixirs. Moreover, it was just a branch, Buzz. However, just as Jin Yuyang's palm touched the branch, She froze on the spot, as if she had been hit hard. This is Patriarch? What happened to you? Jean Yin was stunned. She turned to look at the Patriarch, whose face was flushed. Her lips trembled, but she did not know what to say. Are you kidding me? Patriarch, you are a second-grade heavenly sovereign. You are one of the most powerful people in the Qing Song sect. Why are you so happy because of a branch? Should I say, you care about the Holy Dynasty, or your acting skills are too good? Since you have the blood of the Golden Crow in your body, this Fu Sang branch should be able to help you improve your cultivation. In this way, your lifespan will increase accordingly. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Jean Yan's red lips opened to an unbelievable degree. Fu Sang Divine Tree? Was he bragging? According to the ancient books of the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty, the Fu Sang Divine wood could be said to be the lifeline divine item. Of course, the current monarch clan of the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty only had a trace of the Golden Crow's bloodline flowing in their bodies. Even so, the propping mulberry divine tree was still a heavenly creation that only existed in legends. The extreme of life lies in Fu Sang. Compared to the current immortal clan that ruled the nine heavens, the hidden mulberry divine tree was a connate life form that was born at the beginning of primal chaos. Its cultivation was supreme, and it grew at the end of the world. How could it be something that mortals could covet? But, looking at the Patriarch's expression, he didn't seem to be faking it. So, or did the world underestimate the strength of the Ling people? The withered branch that the young master of the Ling people casually bestowed was actually the Fu Sang Divine Wood. It turns out that we have underestimated the young master's righteousness. Previously, there was a rumor that Master Ling Xiao had personally led 10,000 Black Demon Guards into the Flaming Sun region to kill the young master of the Xiao clan and destroy a domain of barbarian demons for the sake of a servant of the God Arch. As for the young master of the Xiao clan, it was said that he was cruel and had the body of disaster. He was born evil and raised barbarian demons to control the lower realm. Even his own clan members could not escape from his evil hands. Of course, no matter how evil he was still the young master of the Xiao clan and the most powerful person in Qingsong. If not for the Lord Ling Zhao's righteousness, who would dare to kill him in the Xiao clan's spirit mountain? Now, it seemed that being the young master's servant was really a creation. Haha, if Jinya knew that there was a Fu Sang Divine Wood in Ling Zhao's domain, she would probably be scared to death. Thank you, young master. The Golden Crow clan will repay young master's kindness with our lives. Jin Yuyang took a deep breath and suppressed the throbbing in her heart. At her age, it was impossible for her to break through again. However, just now, when she held the Fu Sang Divine Wood, she felt that her realm, which had not fluctuated for tens of thousands of years, had loosened a little. A supreme creation. It was comparable to being reborn. Go and cultivate. Ling Zhao's expression was calm. The art of controlling people was nothing more than this. Even if he had planted a soul seal in them, and there was no possibility of them betraying him, they still had their own thoughts. Only this kind of true submission from the heart could bring out the greatest benefits. The soul seal is just a precaution. When we control people, we must use character to influence them. Yes, when Jin Yuyang's figure disappeared, Ling Zhao's gaze finally landed on Jin Yan. Seeing the evil desire in the eyes of the young master of the Ling people, Jin Yan's body trembled. Does the young master have some special fetish? He doesn't like honor, but what can I do? Although it's embarrassing, he has already planted a soul seal in me. I heard that the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty has an ancient evil item sealed. Ling Xiao smiled warmly, but this caused Jin Yin to be stunned, and her face became even redder. Jin Yin, you are thinking of peaches. Master, just call me young master. Ling Xiao shook his head. Master? This kind of title would make one's imagination run wild. Now that the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty's mission had not been completed, of course, he could not let others see any clues. Yes, young master, that evil item was passed down from my ancestors. Not only my Golden Crow clan, but the other 3 ancestors are also guarding one. Jin Yin sighed softly. She had already guessed that Ling Xiao would not come to the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty for no reason. It seemed that even the righteous Master Ling Xiao could not resist the curiosity in his heart. What is it? Ling Xiao nodded slightly, but Jin Yin shook her head. As for what it is exactly, we do not know. But according to the ancient records in the clan, once this evil item appears, it might be the beginning of the end of the world. The beginning of the end of the world? Ling Xiao's lips curled into a gentle smile. An evil item that even the Realm Lord was afraid of. Could it be related to the Sky Demon? But with the temperament of the Celestial Clan, if it was really the Sky Demon's item, they would definitely not leave it alone. Suddenly, Ling Xiao seemed to have thought of something, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. That's right, young master. Just the place where the evil item is sealed is not something a paragon can barge in. So, Jin Yin wanted to say something, but stopped. But the deeper meaning was self-evident. Young master, you can't die in the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. Otherwise, even if the patriarch extends his life, what's the point? For me to see it, Ling Xiao said indifferently. Jin Yin was about to dissuade him, but fear flashed in her eyes. She bowed and said, "Yes, young master. This way, please." The 2 of them walked one after another into the depths of the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. Jin Yin only stopped when a golden ancient palace appeared in front of them. The moment Ling Xiao saw the ancient palace, his eyes narrowed. At this moment, he could see that the ancient palace was square like a tomb. Countless divine inscriptions covered it, intertwining into chains that wrapped around the entire palace and sealed it. Ling Xiao could feel that the divine inscriptions were filled with an extremely hot energy. It was even more terrifying than the spiritual fire in his body. It was very shocking. But strangely, under the seal, there was an extremely weak and sinister energy that flowed slowly, as if it would never be extinguished. Ling Xiao casually handed Jin Yin a pill. Go down and guard this place. No one is allowed to come in. Yes. Jin Yan's eyes trembled. She reached out to take the pill and walked out of the palace. It was not until she was far away that Ling Xiao waved his hand to seal the place. With a thought, the substitute puppet immediately appeared in his hand. At this time, he did not send his incarnation into the palace. The curse of this palace could kill immortals. In Ling Xiao's opinion, it would be easy to trigger the restriction if his 2 incarnations both cultivated a mortal will. As for the ghastly aura, although it was somewhat different from the Sky Demon will, but all the evil in this world should have submitted to the Sky Demon. So, what was there to worry about? As Ling Xiao walked into the palace, a golden mist swept out like rising mist, mesmerizing the eyes. 9 stone pillars stood around the ancient palace. There were totem carvings on them. Upon closer inspection, they were exactly the same as the Golden Crow outside the palace. A terrifying heat swept over from afar. Raging flames also flickered in Ling Xiao's eyes as the woeful fire body was immediately activated. Golden and black spiritual flames covered his entire body, making him look like an ancient fire god, emitting a divine aura that caused one's heart to palpitate. Ling Xiao stepped forward and walked towards the end of the palace. There he felt a ghastly aura. It was like the most extreme evil in the world, making people shudder. The palace was thousands of feet tall. It was grand and ancient, like a world of its own. However, as Ling Xiao went deeper, he also saw some obvious cracks on some of the ancient pillars. They should have been left behind by the immortal who had walked into this place. Boom! Suddenly, in the depths of the golden light, there was a loud boom. Even with the level of Ling Xiao's divine soul, he felt his scalp go numb. His mind almost collapsed. I'm here. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes and took a step forward. His body turned into a graceful swan as he sped towards the direction of the voice. Boom! Boom! The demonic sound continued in the distance, shaking people's hearts. Ling Xiao finally looked past the layers of golden light and saw a strange demonic fog in the depths of the palace. There, all the spiritual light had disappeared. There was no light in heaven and earth. Only the most profound and ghastly fluctuations were spreading. It was like a demonic sun, standing tall in the sky and intimidating everyone. In the center of the demonic sun, Ling Xiao could vaguely see a black stone plate floating and flipping. Obviously, this was the item sealed by the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. It was also the evil item known as the Green Sky Taboo. However, this aura did not seem like demonic aura to Ling Xiao. It was more like a kind of ghost aura, or rather, the dark underworld aura. At that moment, under the demonic sun, a white jade divine platform was emitting divine light. It was ancient and mysterious, and there were countless golden runes on it. Furthermore, in the center of the divine platform, there was a drop of golden blood floating quietly. It was like the sun, and it surged with a terrifying yang energy. It was also because of this drop of golden blood that the evil item in the void was suppressed and restrained. The dark underworld aura surged like waves. However, the moment it touched the golden blood, it melted like snow in spring and disappeared. This aura, is it the power of the sun? Ling Xiao's expression was solemn. Even with his current cultivation level, he still felt his heart palpitate when facing this drop of golden blood. One could only imagine how tyrannical the owner of this drop of blood was. Furthermore, Ling Xiao could feel that with his current sky demon body, he would not be able to refine the terrifying power contained in this divine blood. At that moment, he finally understood why the human emperor sealed the sky with his divine blood. Such an ancient and powerful body and bloodline were so powerful that it was unimaginable. Looks like this path to immortality is truly vast, boundless, and gorgeous. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at the sealed evil item. Now that he wanted to seize this item, he had to seal this drop of divine blood first. The absolute beginning divine talisman was an item that accompanied the sky demon. Perhaps it could suppress this drop of blood. However, with the strength of his soul sea, it would be difficult for him to bear the power of this divine blood. Suddenly, Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. With a thought, an ancient green token appeared in front of him. It was the Ling people's token that Demon Lord Zhongyu had given him. This token could contain a strand of the Demon Lord's divine consciousness. One could imagine how powerful it was. Even though Zhongyu's cultivation level had fallen, he was still not a heavenly supreme or even a great emperor. However, just as the spiritual radiance around Ling Xiao's body fluctuated and he was about to seal the divine blood, a strange soul light suddenly lit up on the immortal platform not far away. Chapter 1073. Buzz. Soul power rippled above the immortal platform. Immediately after, Ling Xiao could feel a vast and majestic force of heaven and earth descending, wanting to envelop him. Ha! It's been 100,000 years. Finally, someone has come here. An illusory figure gradually appeared in the soul power. It was ethereal and had a natural Tao. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes and quickly guessed the origin of this remnant soul. This person was most likely the immortal who wanted to seize the divine dynasty's evil treasure. However, his physical body had collapsed, and only his remnant soul was left to be suppressed by the golden blood immortal platform. After 100,000 years, his cultivation level was probably not as high as before. Who are you? Ling Xiao's eyes were indifferent. All the souls in this world did not have much power to him. The absolute beginning divine talisman was the sky demon's eternal spiritual treasure. It cannot be measured by its grade. Even though this treasure was broken and no longer had its power, any soul that entered his soul's sea would not have a good ending. Who am I? Ha 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 ha. Young man, I felt that we were fated the moment I saw you. I am the mountain-moving sage of the immortal race, a supreme existence. After meeting me, your immortal path has truly begun. The soul shadow laughed wildly and deliberately released a wisp of soul power, causing the nether chi above his head to vibrate. The mountain-moving sage. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed. This name sounded like a demon. Could it be that the immortal race was not the only race in the so-called celestial realm? Oomph. You have not even heard of my name? It's no wonder. It's been 100,000 years. My name has probably disappeared in the long river of history. However, it doesn't matter. As long as you do as I say, I will definitely make you famous in the 9 heavens. The mountain-moving sage looked arrogant. He seemed to have forgotten how his physical body was shattered by a drop of blood, and his divine soul was sealed. How did you get trapped here? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows. At this moment, he also felt that this mountain-moving sage was fated with him. Although this godly soul was slightly weak to Ling Xiao, it could still be considered as a great supplement. Oomph. Back then, I took advantage of the fact that the immortal realm and the mortal realm were not completely separated to secretly descend to this world. I originally wanted to control this world, but I did not expect that there would be innate Holy Spirit blood essence in this small mortal world. Originally, with my strength, I would not be suppressed by this blood, but the mountain-moving sage hesitated for a moment, as if he could not find a good explanation. Suddenly, he snorted coldly. Oomph, you're just a little ant. Do you know what an innate divine spirit is? You wouldn't understand even if I told you. All you need to know is that by chanting my true name and obtaining my inheritance, you could become the sole ruler of the world. Oh, then how can I obtain your inheritance? Ling Xiao smiled warmly, as if he was already moved by the inheritance of this immortal. Simple. You just need to open up your soul sea, and I will break free from this seal. After my divine sense enters your soul sea, I will impart you with a supreme cultivation art. At that time, as long as you can cultivate this art, you will be able to soar up to the heavens and slaughter those below the ancient gods. Let me tell you the truth, I still have some inheritances in the immortal realms. The great sage of the moving mountain boasted. In his opinion, how could a young man from the mortal world know how vast the world was? As long as he left this place, he would have the opportunity to be reborn. Oh, enter my soul sea? That's not good. With your cultivation, if you want to take over my body, won't I be powerless to resist? Ling Xiao shook his head and pretended to be worried. I am the great sage of the moving mountain. Why would I be interested in the physical body of a human ant? Kid, are you looking down on me? Not to mention you, even the ancient god sky demon was nothing to me when I was at my peak. The great sage of the moving mountain shouted angrily, his eyes slightly gloomy. Oh, you don't care about the sky demon? I don't believe it. The sky demon is feared by the 9 heavens. Since you are so tyrannical, why don't you help me seal this blood? Ling Xiao was unmoved. It was obvious that the great sage of the moving mountain was bragging. If he was really as tyrannical as he said, how could he have been killed here? Of course, if Ling Xiao appeared too anxious now, this immortal would definitely have doubts. Let him show off his strength first, and then invite him to enter the soul sea. It would save time and effort. Why not? The great sage of the moving mountain choked, and a trace of killing intent gradually appeared in his heart. How could he not know what this young man was thinking? He just wanted to exhaust his strength and then scheme to obtain the fortune here. Even if he was at his peak, he would not be able to seal the sacred blood, let alone now. However, wouldn't it be easy to fool a human ant? The sacred might contained in this sacred blood had been mostly exhausted in the past 100,000 years, and he only needed to seal it for a few breaths to deceive this person, enter his soul sea, and become his master. Do you think you're on the 3rd level? Oomph, I am the great sage of the moving mountain. How can I be tricked by others? Let me beat you at your own game. All right, today I will let you see the divine might of the great sage of the moving mountain. As soon as he finished speaking, divine light suddenly fluctuated around the immortal figure like a sea of stars descending, containing the terrifying might of the heavens, and suppressed the golden blood. Above the golden blood, golden flames swept out like the sun, as if it was trying to break free from its restraints. However, just as the great sage of the moving mountain had said, the sacred might of the golden blood had already been depleted. As long as he used all his strength, he would definitely be able to seal it for a few breaths. If not for Ling Xiao, he would definitely die after a few breaths. However, with this young man's body as a medium, he could temporarily reside in it and wait for the future to return to the nine heavens. Buzz. A buzzing sound resounded, and the divine soul above the golden blood immediately dimmed. The great sage of the moving mountain immediately shouted coldly, "What? Why aren't you opening your soul sea?" At this moment, he was somewhat nervous. However, the young man in front of him was the only opportunity he had waited for 100,000 years. If he missed it, his divine soul would not be able to last for more than a few years. "Please come in." Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, but his gaze was not on the great sage of the moving mountain. Instead, he controlled the Ling people's ancient token and stored the sacred blood into the clan token. Seeing this, the great sage of the moving mountain was stunned, and a rare trace of hesitation appeared in his eyes. F***CK? This young man actually has a treasure on him that can suppress the sacred blood? Then, could there be a supreme treasure in his soul sea that can suppress me? Has the world changed? How could there be such a terrifying young man in a mere mortal realm? Young man, I've changed my mind. My soul sea is not something you can enter just because you want to. Ling Xiao smiled gently. At this moment, the great sage of the moving mountain's divine soul was already bound by the golden blood. In his eyes, he was just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Therefore, before he could react, he felt an extremely terrifying suppressive force descend from the sky and forcefully plunge him into Ling Xiao's soul sea. Buzz. The great sage of the moving mountain's expression changed drastically. At this moment, what he saw was a heavenly soul palace towering between heaven and earth. It was tall and majestic. Above the demonic palace, a demonic sun bloomed with thousands of rays of light, devouring all the light in this place. It was a kind of boundless and ancient demonic will that could suppress heaven and earth. Gulp. The great sage of the moving mountain swallowed hard. However, he saw a black-robed figure standing quietly above the soul palace with a gentle smile on his face. "You, who exactly are you?" "Me? I am the sky demon that you said you did not care about at all." Ling Xiao's eyes were playful. He suddenly pressed his palm down, and the absolute beginning divine talisman immediately released a monstrous soul light, completely engulfing the great sage of the moving mountain, who was in a daze and whose eyes were filled with fear. Crack, crack. Chapter 1074. Buzz. The soul palace suddenly grew several thousand feet tall. Ling Xiao's eyes were clear as he quietly felt the pleasure brought by the increase in power. Even though the remnant soul of an immortal clan expert had been suppressed for 100,000 years, it still allowed Ling Xiao's divine soul to break through 4 realms and reach the 6th stage of the Saint Realm. Judging from the current realm of the experts in the Azure world, the power of this divine soul was comparable to that of an ordinary immortal clan elder or even a sect master. However, from the immortal clan's soul sea memory, Ling Xiao also saw his guess about this drop of divine blood. The power of the sun and the innate divine spirit. This drop of blood was very likely the essence blood of an immemorial demon, illumination. Could it be that the ancestors of the Golden Crow 4 dynasties were once servants of this great demon? Yin Yang in 4 divisions. It was reasonable. In that case, what could be the evil being that could cause such a great demon that had long since surpassed the 9 heavens to feel fear? Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked up at the source of the netherlight. Without the suppression of the divine blood, a green inky stone plate quietly circled there. However, what surprised Ling Xiao was that although the stone plate was surrounded by an eerie nether intent, it did not emit a strong power. In other words, although it was a treasure, it did not seem to be an offensive treasure. Ling Xiao frowned slightly and waved his hand. The ancient plate immediately fell from the sky and landed in his palm. It was obvious that the stone plate was not complete. There were many mysterious runes engraved on it that Ling Xiao did not recognize at all. However, inexplicably, the eerie intent contained in the stone plate reminded Ling Xiao of someone. Chen Qingshan. Back then, this little disciple of the immortal sect had awakened the sacred body of the Nether King by chance. The aura emitted from his body was somewhat similar to this stone plate. Interesting. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed slightly, and the corners of his mouth suddenly curled up into a smile. A few days ago, Chen Qingshan had sent news that at the border of the Shenwu Empire, there was an evil sect, the Gantian Divine Sect, that used the art of Pluto to control the people. They collected blood spirits and nurtured a mysterious holy infant. This holy infant's cultivation wasn't high, and he was only in the exalted realm. However, his origins were rather mysterious, and he was secretly searching for the Netherworld disk. Could it be that the secret of the mysterious stone plate was with the holy infant? A month's time was enough for Ling Xiao to complete his plan and gain full control of the 4 great divine empires. He would be able to recreate the might of this board. At that time, it would be a great opportunity for him to show the righteousness of the human race and kill this evil demon for the world. As for Chen Qingshan, he was the mandate of heaven and had fallen into this situation. Perhaps this evil thing would be his opportunity to break through. How could a dark heavens will be able to defy the heavens without a sufficient foundation? He just didn't know what kind of ancient secret Ling Xiao would uncover this time. Buzz. With a wave of his hand, Ling Xiao kept the ancient plate into his soul sea. With the absolute beginning ancestral symbol and the glass divine pagoda suppressing him, he was not afraid that others would notice anything. However, just as Ling Xiao was about to turn around and leave the main hall, he suddenly heard a cry of surprise from his soul sea. Feng Ling's figure stepped out of the void with a puzzled look on her face. What did you put into your soul sea just now? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. He summoned the ancient plate again and handed it to Feng Ling previously. When he was in the heart of the space-time divine beast, Ling Xiao had seen the changes in Feng Ling. This girl seemed to have suddenly become much quieter. Moreover, she seemed to know more about those ancient beasts than Gue Ying. Ling Xiao had many guesses about Feng Ling's identity, but now it seemed that he had underestimated this girl's origins. Tying Darkchi? Feng Ling frowned slightly, and a look of confusion flashed across her delicate face. Tying Darkchi? Hearing this, Ling Xiao's expression didn't change much. Since the mountain-moving sage said that this drop of sacred blood was the blood essence of the Sun Saint Spirit, then it was normal for it to be used to suppress an item of tying. However, Ling Xiao was slightly puzzled. With this Saint Spirit's abilities and cultivation, why did she only seal this stone plate and not completely destroy it? Ling Xiao, this thing is not complete. Feng Ling casually threw the stone plate back to Ling Xiao. What surprised the latter was that at this moment, he actually felt that the sinister and evil aura on the stone plate seemed to have been sealed, and it slowly recovered after a while. That's right, there should be 3 more. Feng Ling, how did you know about this? Ling Xiao's eyes were calm, but he was increasingly puzzled. From the beginning, he didn't feel a trace of spiritual power fluctuation from Feng Ling. However, it was very inexplicable. The power that emanated from her every move seemed to be able to seal the heavens and the earth. I don't know either, but Feng Ling wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, she sighed softly. Ling Xiao, if there comes a day when I leave, will you miss me? Leave? Where to? Didn't you say that you were born in the Glazed Pagoda and won't go anywhere? Perhaps it will still take some time. Feng Ling did not reply. Instead, she raised her head and looked at the sky outside the hall. It was getting stronger and stronger. That kind of hatred that was about to be broken. Oh, if you need me to do anything, just tell me. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. His tone was extremely calm. If there comes a day, I want to have a good fight with you. Feng Ling nodded with a serious expression, and a rare look of longing appeared on her little face. Just like how you hit Yin Qingyin back then. Ling Zhao's eyes trembled as he shook his head helplessly. He didn't expect that this girl would still remember this matter after her memories were awakened. This power of Tyene is not a threat to me. If you need me to do anything, just call me. After speaking, Feng Ling looked at Ling Xiao deeply and was about to disappear. Feng Ling, there is something I need your help with. Ling Xiao smiled awkwardly. In his memory, this was the first time Feng Ling had taken the initiative to help him. Perhaps she really did have a reason to leave. Speak. Feng Ling crossed her arms and looked at Ling Xiao with disdain. Can you seal the dark qi from the netherworld plate on the divine platform? Ling Xiao grinned. His eyes were full of thoughts. With the strange power on Feng Ling's body to seal the dark qi, even if a supreme being powerhouse came personally, they wouldn't be able to find any clues. This way, he could set up a game of chess without any worries. He could toy with the 4 dynasties and even the entire Azure world in the palm of his hand. Isn't that simple? Feng Ling reached out her hand. The dark qi on the netherworld plate turned into a long dragon, and she held it in her hand. Then, a ray of light bloomed around her body. It wrapped around the dark qi and sealed it in its original position. From the outside, the scene in the hall was the same as before. Thank you. Ling Xiao nodded with satisfaction. After Feng Ling's figure disappeared, he lifted his feet and walked out of the hall. Jin Yan didn't go too far. When she saw Ling Xiao walking over, there was a trace of joy on her face. Fortunately, nothing happened to this young master in the Divine Dynasty. Otherwise, even if she and the Patriarch had submitted, the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty would not be able to escape destruction. Young master, use the bloodline of the Golden Crow to reseal this hall. I don't want a third person to know what happened today. Ling Xiao said indifferently and walked out of the hall. However, just as he was about to disappear, he suddenly stopped. In a few days, there might be chaos in the 4 dynasties. Remember, don't tell anyone that the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty has submitted to me. As for Jin Han, you can remind her alone, but don't tell her. Now that he wanted to get the remaining 3 fragments of the stone plate, he had to create chaos in the 4 dynasties. Only then would he have a chance to get the treasures. However, these 4 evil treasures are evil. I, Ling Xiao, am righteous. Why would I covet them? So, the one who will get the treasures is probably the Sky Demon. What does it have to do with me? Ling Xiao. Yes, young master. Jin Yan's beautiful eyes narrowed as she bowed deeply. Chapter 1075. 100 miles away from the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty, Ling Xiao stood on the peak of a green mountain with his hands behind his back. Behind him, the secret guard bowed and did not get up for a long time. Have you found out? Since the moment he arrived at the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty, he had sent a secret guard to the other 3 holy dynasties to find out the secrets of the 3 dynasties and to find an opportunity to set up a trap. My lord, the Yanlong Dynasty and the Black Tortoise Dynasty are very powerful and have the ambition to conquer the 4 dynasties. The Black Tortoise Crown Prince is pursuing the Golden Crow Eldest Princess because he wants to join forces with the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty to suppress the Yanlong Dynasty. There is no enmity between the Yanlong Dynasty and the Guilin Holy Dynasty. However, the second prince of the Guilin Holy Dynasty, Guyu, has a childhood sweetheart who joined an ancient sect in the spiritual God border region. A year ago, the Yanlong Crown Prince, Yanzheng, happened to pass by the sect and forcibly took her into the imperial palace of the Yan Dynasty. Since then, Guyu hated Yanzheng. However, the Yanlong Crown Prince is very powerful. It is said that he is the most powerful genius of the 4 dynasties. The 2 of them agreed to fight to the death in the Cloud Sea City. Oh, his childhood sweetheart was taken? Fight to the death. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a sinister smile. No wonder Guyu was so lucky. He had such a tragic experience. Inflammation? The most powerful genius of the 4 dynasties? That's right, my lord. The Yanlong Crown Prince is very violent and cruel. He has 2 divine guards. One is the Dragon Guard, and the other is the Flame Guard who hides in the dark to gather information. He has the bearing of an emperor. Since Yin Zheng has a grudge against Guyu, he must have arranged flame guards to keep an eye on him. Go and find them. Ling Zhao's eyes were cold, and he had made up his mind. Yes. After the secret guard left, Ling Xiao turned his head and looked in the direction of the Golden Crow Holy Dynasty. Finally, he started to walk towards the Gulin Holy Dynasty. It was obvious that Guyu had gone to the sovereign's secret realm in search of fortune, hoping to defeat Yin Zheng in this battle. However, he hadn't obtained any good fortune and had almost died. Now that the battle was about to begin, he must be feeling very uneasy. Don't worry, Prince Guyu. I'm here. In that case, you can die in peace. A day passed in the blink of an eye. At this moment, in front of the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty's imperial palace, a beautiful figure in a feather robe slowly walked over. At this moment, Jean Han had lost her usual arrogance and haughtiness. Her jet black hair hung loosely before her forehead and ears, and she seemed listless and dejected. Even her eyes were filled with a wisp of defeat. In the end, she put down her dignity and her status, but she still couldn't get into the young man's eyes. The Golden Crow Divine Dynasty was now a stranger. It's the eldest princess. Greetings, eldest princess. Outside the hall, the two guards bowed, but there was some doubt and surprise between their brows. What was wrong with the eldest princess? Why did she look like she had lost her soul? Sigh. Jean Han sighed softly. Originally, with her cultivation level, it would take her at most one day to rush back to the Divine Dynasty from the Divine Battlefield. However, along the way, she was at a loss. She didn't know how to face her mother and patriarch, so she had to walk for almost 3 days. Honor. Suddenly, a surprised voice came from afar. Jean Han's expression turned serious. She looked up and found herself in front of the Divine Dynasty's imperial palace. Mother. Jean Han wanted to say something but stopped. When she saw Jean Yan's pale face and weak breath, her eyes suddenly narrowed. Mother, what happened to you? The decline of the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty was now common knowledge among the 4 dynasties. Although the patriarch often appeared in the past few years, anyone with a discerning eye could see that it was just the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty's last act of intimidation. Once Jean Yang died, the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty and the Flaming Dragon Divine Dynasty would definitely think of ways to swallow the Divine Dynasty and unify the Spirit God realm. I'm fine. Han, why did you come back so late? Jean Yang glared at Jean Han. Although her breath was weak, there was a bright smile on her face. Jean Han was obviously stunned. She seemed to have not seen her mother smile like this for a long time. Perhaps her mother was still hoping that she would be doted on by Master Ling Xiao so that she could provide protection for the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty in the future. Mother, I'm useless, plop. Jean Han fell to her knees with a thump, her eyes brimming with tears. In the end, she had failed her mother's expectations and the trust of the people in the world. What was the use of being proud? Now, it seemed that she was just asking for humiliation. Han, why do you say that? If it weren't for Han, why would Master Ling Xiao come to our dynasty personally and give us a divine treasure to help the patriarch break through his cultivation level? Get up quickly. Han has done a great service to the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty. Jean Yin smiled gently and walked to Jean Han. She reached out to hold her hand and helped her up from the ground. What? Jean Han's face was completely blank. She looked up at the sincere smile on Jean Yan's face. Her lips trembled slightly, and she could not say a word. Mother, did you say the young master was here? Yes. Why did you come back so late? You could have seen the young master a little earlier. Jean Yan rolled her eyes at Jean Han, and pulled her sit on the throne. From Jean Han's reaction, Jean Yan had guessed that her trip to the Ling people was not very fruitful. Even so, Master Ling Xiao still came to the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty and gave her a great opportunity. Of course, in the eyes of the young master, the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty was just a tool to help him control the spirit divine realm and get the protection of the 4 evil treasures. However, without the young master, the Golden Crow divine dynasty would have been destroyed sooner or later. This kindness was like giving her new life. Moreover, more importantly, Jean Yin could feel that the young master had not planted a soul seal on Jean Han. Otherwise, why would she be so shocked? Could it be that young master had purposely surprised her? If that was the case, maybe the two of them could still have a chance? Mother, what exactly happened? Jean Han's eyes were burning. Her originally disappointed and hesitant heart was suddenly filled with an inexplicable hope. This morning, Master Ling Xiao came personally and gave us the divine Tree Fu saying, "The forefather and I have submitted to the young master. From now on, the Golden Crow divine dynasty will serve the young master." The corners of Jean Yan's mouth curled up. She gently stroked Jean Han's hair and said, "Han, looks like the young master really treats you well. However, this matter cannot be made public. The young master has his own plans. Perhaps this time, not only will the Golden Crow divine dynasty be resolved, but we will also be able to conquer the 4 dynasties." What? Jean Han's body trembled. Her red lips parted slightly. After hesitating for a while, she fell to her knees and looked at the sky. "Han, thank you, young master. Beep. The daughter of destiny has submitted. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 6,000 luck points and 60,000 villain points. Beep. Since the daughter of destiny has less than 10,000 luck points, the system reward is halved. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 2% of destiny forging points. Beep. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a luck plundering talisman." Thousands of miles away, in the Cloud Sea City, Ling Xiao sat in a tea house and looked at a pretty girl who was playing the zither with her head lowered. There was not a trace of surprise on his face. Jean Han's heart had almost been crushed by herself. She was a person who was filled with despair and had an uncertain future. Now, she suddenly realized that all her difficulties had been eliminated. If she still refused to submit, then it could only be said that she should be killed. Chapter 1076. Cloud Sea City was an ancient city at the border of the Guilin and Yanlong dynasties. It belonged to the former. Usually, there wouldn't be many cultivators coming to a border city like this. But now, as the date of the battle between the second prince of the Guilin divine dynasty and the Yanlong crown prince was approaching, this ancient city was already crowded half a month ago. At this moment, Ling Xiao's face was covered by a layer of light. If it was any other day, he would definitely attract a lot of attention. But now, all the geniuses of the 4 dynasties were gathered here. There were all kinds of strange cultivators, so it wasn't too eye-catching. Look, it's the Yanlong Crown Prince's dragon guards. Just as Ling Xiao was listening to music and drinking tea and thinking to himself, there was a sudden shout in the tea house. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and looked out of the window. Indeed, he saw countless figures in crimson armor descending from the sky with sabers in their hands. In the middle of the dragon guards, there was a golden carriage carried by 8 people. Although it was covered by a thin veil, Ling Xiao could still see the 2 people sitting on the carriage. Especially the young man who wore a golden robe and exposed his chest. It caused the corners of Ling Xiao's mouth to unconsciously curl into a smile. Yanlong Crown Prince, Yin Zheng. 7th grade, Martial, Saint Realm. He had no luck. However, there seemed to be an extremely terrifying flame energy circulating around him. It contained a violent and scorching aura. According to what Ling Xiao knew, Yin Zheng was not only the number 1 genius of the 4 dynasties, but he was also the only son of the Yanlong Emperor. He had always been doted on and would grant any request. Whenever he went out, there would be experts following behind him. At this moment, Ling Xiao could feel a vast and terrifying aura looming in the void. It should be a 7th grade martial saint realm expert. Of course, the reason why the Yanlong Emperor was so cautious was not without reason. After all, if Yin Zheng died, the Yanlong imperial dynasty's inheritance would be cut off. For any ancient divine dynasty, The consequences were unimaginable. Ling Xiao was here to use this as a contract to drive the Flame Dragon Imperial Dynasty crazy and declare war against the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty. At that time, he would only need to hide in the dark, and he would be able to take the evil treasures sealed by the two dynasties. Do you think this is the end? Childish. There was definitely something suspicious about Yin Zheng's death. If there was no one to take the blame, how could Ling Xiao rightfully control the four dynasties? Therefore, when the time was right, Ling Xiao would order Qin Shan to lure the gone Heaven Divine sect over to collect the blood spirits and search for the Sky In Underworld disc. Using the name of the Sky Demon, the Gan Tian Divine sect was indeed relying on it to do whatever they wanted. But you made me take such a big blame, so you have to pay a price, right? The four dynasties had always been united against a common enemy. Since that was the case, they could only disintegrate them from the inside. That person in the carriage is Prince Guyu's childhood sweetheart, right? She should be. I heard that she was the young miss of a declining clan in the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty. Her name is Su Qingwan. Because the ancient Qilin Emperor objected, she didn't marry into an imperial clan. That was why she took the palace master of the Dream Immortals Palace as her master. Who knew that the Flame Dragon Crown Prince would take a liking to her and forcefully take her back to the Flame Dragon Imperial Dynasty. With the Flame Dragon Crown Prince's temper, he probably just wanted to play. Who knew that the palace master of the Dream Immortals Palace would ask Prince Guyu for help, which made Yin Zheng want to fight for her. Bastard. That Yin Zheng is simply a bastard. Even though the cultivators in the city were from the four divine dynasties, they were clearly more local than local cultivators. At this moment, a wisp of resentment flashed through their faces as they looked at Yin Zheng, who was sitting in the carriage with a beauty in his arms. In the tea house, Ling Xiao smiled warmly when he heard what they were saying. He was naturally extremely familiar with such tricks. But Su Qingwan had been captured in the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty for a year, and Yin Zheng had probably played her thoroughly. What can I say? Love is a ray of light. Guyu, you're magnanimous. You're loyal. Whem. Right when everyone was discussing animatedly and a few thousand dragon guards were descending from the sky, numerous figures with terrifying auras suddenly soared into the sky from within the city, and they stopped Yin Zheng's carriage. Stop right there. You're not allowed to step foot into the territory of my ancient Qilin dynasty. Numerous figures in golden armor stood towering in midair, and they stood in confrontation with Yin Zheng's dragon guard from afar. A Saint Realm expert stood with his hands behind his back at the lead of the group. His figure was tall, and he seemed like a general. How presumptuous! How dare you disrespect the crown prince of my dynasty? You're courting death. Could it be that Crown Prince Yin Zheng is afraid that he'll die in my city? That's why he actually led his troops here? Right when all the dragon guards raised their sabers and were about to attack, another figure walked over slowly from within the city and stood before the crowd. It was the second prince of the ancient Qilin dynasty, Guyu, who'd headed to the supreme secret realm earlier. At this moment, even though Guyu had a solemn expression on his face, he didn't seem as flustered and helpless as Ling Xiao had imagined. Ling Xiao even noticed a strand of the aura of a Dao Law from him. He was at the 6th rank of the Exalt realm, and he possessed karmic luck. So, it wasn't impossible for him to defeat Yin Zheng, who was at the 7th rank of the Exalt realm. Looks like the second prince has had some fortuitous encounters recently. Guyu, you still only know how to talk big. What? Have you already forgotten the fear of being crushed by this crown prince last time? A fair palm suddenly stretched out from within the carriage. After that, a gloomy young man in a golden robe appeared before everyone. Beside him was a beautiful young lady in light clothes. She had a bitter look in her eyes as she looked down at her feet. It seemed like she didn't dare to meet Guyu's eyes. Qingwan, when he saw the young lady, Guyu's originally calm face instantly rippled, and a wisp of resentment and sorrow appeared in his eyes. If he'd been more determined back then, perhaps he wouldn't have fallen into such a predicament today. Fortunately, that day he'd experienced life and death in the supreme secret realm, and he'd actually comprehended the Gung Metal Dao Law by accident. So, he might not lose tomorrow's battle. No, he had to ruthlessly trample on Yin Zheng in front of all the geniuses of the four dynasties. He had to shatter Yin Zheng's Tao heart and consign him to eternal damnation. Of course, no matter how much Guyu hated Yin Zheng, he definitely didn't dare to rashly kill him. After all, if he died, the entire Yin Long Divine Dynasty would probably go crazy. Haha, stop looking. Guyu, you'd better think about how to save your life tomorrow. Yin Zheng smiled eerily and pulled Su Qing into his arms. Let me give you a friendly reminder. You can kneel down and call me father. If you acknowledge me as your godfather, I might consider sparing your worthless life. You. Guyu clenched his fists, and Tao inscriptions flowed in his eyes. He almost couldn't suppress his murderous intent. All of you, go to the Yin-Long border and wait for me. It's just the ancient Qilin divine dynasty. Even if I give them 100 guts, what can they do to me? Yin Zheng laughed maniacally and waved his hand to dismiss the thousands of dragon guards. He took a step forward, and the shadow of a dragon seemed to follow him. He was domineering and insufferably arrogant. Seeing this, Ling Zhao's smile widened. Did you see that? This was a typical villain. He looked powerful, but he was domineering and always thought that he could crush everything with his status. Little did he know that the greatest pleasure in this world was always when the weak defeated the strong and unexpected. Chapter 1077. Qingwan. Don't worry, I'll definitely take you back openly this time. Guyu gritted his teeth and swore to himself. In the end, he didn't speak another word. He led the generals into the city and vanished. At this moment, the woman in plain clothes in the tea house bowed slightly after finishing her song, and it caused a wave of cheers. Ling Xiao put down a spirit stone, turned around, and walked out of the tea house. Looks like someone is bound to be sleepless tonight. Night had fallen, but the entire city was still bustling with noise. There were even gambling houses that had opened up bets on who would win between Guyu and Yin Zheng. Of course, everyone from the four dynasties knew that while Yin Zheng was domineering and arrogant, his combat strength was heaven-defying, and his flame dragon divine technique could crush anyone in his generation. On the other hand, Guyu could only be considered as a genius, and he couldn't be compared to the true monstrous geniuses of the four dynasties. Moreover, one of them was at the 6th rank of the Exalt Realm, while the other was at the 7th rank of the Exalt Realm. It was obvious who was stronger. While the path to immortality was dazzling, the true determinant of one's combat strength was one's cultivation. Moreover, in terms of status, Guyu was only the 2nd prince of a dynasty, while Yin Zheng was the crown prince of the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty and possessed countless treasures. How could Guyu compete with him? Have you finished your investigation? At a corner of the city, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back while hiding in the darkness. Behind him, a figure covered in a black robe bowed. My lord, I have. Guyu has a personal guard commander by his side. He's a member of the Flame Guards, and his name is Qi Hao. The crown prince summoned him before he arrived. You will pretend to hand this soul imprint over to Guyu. Remember, it must pass through this person's hands. The more careful you act, the better. When the time comes, you only need to say this. Ling Zhao's eyes were gloomy, and there was a smile on the corners of his mouth. The role of this spy was naturally to obtain information for his master. Yin Zheng's death in the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty was not enough to drive the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty into a frenzy. Then, was Guyu colluding with the Sky Demon's vassal to destroy the Yin Long Divine Dynasty enough for the Flame Dragon Emperor to disregard everything? Perhaps the Fire Dragon Imperial clan would be filled with hatred for the loss of their beloved son. However, the threat of the dynasty's destruction left them with no other choice. Of course, even if this Flame Guard did not voluntarily give the seal to Yin Zheng, Ling Xiao naturally had a way to make him cooperate obediently. Yes, my lord. The secret guard bowed and turned to head towards the City Lord Palace, where Guyu was staying. Ling Xiao also concealed his aura and followed closely behind him, disappearing into the darkness. Stop! Who are you? Ocean of Cloud City. before a grand ancient palace. The shadow guard walked over from the street and bowed to the palace guards. I have something important to report to the second prince. I hope the two of you can help me pass the message. At this moment, he could see that Chi Hao was standing in front of the hall in his golden armor, and he was looking over here vigilantly. You have something to report? The two guards looked at each other and frowned. What do you want? It's a secret. I hope the two of you can pass the message. Hearing this, the two guards' faces turned gloomy. However, at this moment, Chi Hao walked over from afar and shouted in a deep voice, What do you want? Commander. The two guards bowed, but Chi Hao waved his hand and dismissed them. I am Chi Hao, the commander of the second prince's personal guards. If there is anything, just tell me. Commander Chi, I have heard a lot about you. I am here on the orders of the sect master. I have something important to pass to the second prince. I hope the commander can pass the message. Something important? Chi Hao frowned slightly. Tomorrow was the day of the battle between Gu Yu and Crown Prince Yinzheng. As Gu Yu's personal guard, he could clearly feel that Gu Yu seemed to have a well-thought-out plan for this battle and wasn't as panicked and dejected as before. He originally thought that the second prince had obtained some good fortune in the supreme secret area. However, it seemed that things were not as simple as he thought. Sect Master? What's Sect Master? The prince is now in seclusion to prepare for the battle tomorrow. If we disturb him now, I am afraid that neither of us can bear the consequences. The secret guard frowned and revealed a worried expression. Commander Chi, I can't stay here for long. May I know when the prince will come out of seclusion? At least tomorrow. If you have something important, why don't you pass it to me? I will pass it to the prince. Chi Hao's expression was calm, but his eyes were gloomy. This is not very good. My sect master specially reminded me that I must pass it to Prince Gu Yu personally. Do you not trust me? Chi Hao snorted coldly. His divine aura suddenly descended, causing the secret guard's face to turn pale. His eyes were filled with fear. No, that is not what I meant. All right, Commander. This divine soul imprint contains the next big plan of the sect master and the prince. I hope the commander can pass it to Prince Gu Yu personally. Don't worry. Chi Hao nodded slightly. He watched as the black figure turned and walked into the crowd, disappearing. In the next moment, a sinister look flashed across his face. The next big plan? As expected, Gu Yu was so calm now. He must have something to rely on to deal with Crown Prince Yinzheng. However, this divine soul imprint would be completely destroyed once touched. It was better to show it to the Crown Prince. The two of you follow me. Thinking of this, Chi Hao immediately turned around and called out to the two guards not far away. They walked towards the corner of the city. At this moment, in the sky above the ancient hall, Ling Xiao gazed calmly at the three figures that had left, and there wasn't the slightest ripple on his face. It was obvious that Chi Hao had fallen into the trap. Next, he only needed to wait patiently for tomorrow. Everything would fall into place, naturally. With Ling Xiao's strength and background, it was naturally not difficult for him to defeat the four dynasties. However, the four dynasties were guarding the evil treasure of the Azure world. Once he did it too obviously, it would inevitably attract unnecessary suspicion. After all, there were many experts in the Azure world, and there was no lack of scheming people. The advantage of setting up a trap was that he could put himself behind the scenes and lure out all the potential threats before eliminating them one by one. In this way, when the time was right, he could suppress the ancient times and achieve immortality. The path to immortality was ancient. Since there was no luck, he naturally had to be careful and avoid all risks. Suddenly, an extremely obscure fluctuation came from the darkness. When Chi Hao walked out, the two golden armor guards were no longer behind him. His figure was hidden in the darkness as he flashed towards a courtyard in the north of the city. A Saint Realm expert was already the top in the Cloud Sea City. At this moment, Chi Hao had used a method to conceal his aura. Thus, it was difficult for anyone to notice his tracks. Buzz! When Chi Hao's figure descended from the sky and stood in front of the courtyard, he spread out his soul to investigate the surroundings. Only then did he knock on the door and report softly. Crown Prince, Yin Hao greets you. Come in. After a short while, a sinister voice sounded from the courtyard. Chi Hao pushed the door open and entered, bowing towards the figure within. Crown Prince, someone just sent a soul imprint to Guyu, but I intercepted it. Oh, who sent it? The corners of Yin Zheng's brows raised slightly, but there was a wisp of disdain on his face. He said that a sect master sent it, and it's related to Guyu's grand plan. I'm worried that he wants to join forces with outsiders to deal with you. Chapter 1078. Working with outsiders? I like to see who has the guts to do so. Yin Zheng sneered. In the Four Dynasties, he couldn't kill anyone he wanted. Those who dared to provoke him were all dead. Guyu, the second prince of the Gu Lin divine dynasty, dared to play tricks with him? With that thought, Yin Zheng clenched his fist and crushed the divine soul mark. He saw a wisp of dense soul light sweeping over and pouring into his sea of soul in a flash. Guyu, Lord Sky Demon, has ordered the Gone Sky Divine Sect to secretly help you unify the Four Dynasties. However, as a price, you have to offer the items sealed by the Four Dynasties to my master. Make a decision quickly and send a message to me. Boom! A vast soul aura spread out. Faintly, Yin Zheng felt a dark and cold fluctuation flashing in his soul sea. Before he could investigate it carefully, the wisp of evil intent had already disappeared without a trace. Sky Demon. At that moment, Yin Zheng felt a chill rising from the bottom of his feet. His body trembled, and he couldn't react for a long time. There was no one in the Four Dynasties that he was afraid of. However, the name Sky Demon was a taboo in the Nine Heavens. If Guyu really colluded with the Sky Demon, not to mention the Yin Long Divine Dynasty, even the top sects in the Azure world wouldn't be able to escape destruction. Crown Prince Yu, Chi Hao's face froze, especially when he saw the cold sweat on Yin Zheng's head. He felt an inexplicable pressure. Commander Hao, you've done a great service. Yin Zheng took a deep breath and suppressed the fear in his heart. No wonder Guyu, a defeated opponent, dared to clamor with him today. It turned out that he had sided with the Sky Demon. However, the Sky Demon had declined and hadn't become a force yet. Otherwise, he wouldn't have needed to support him secretly. As long as he took this opportunity to expose this conspiracy, he might become an existence comparable to the human emperor in the history of the human race. Commander Hao, go back first. Don't alert the enemy. Guyu colluded with the Sky Demon and deserves to be punished. Remember all the people and forces that have dealings with Guyu these days. Yes, Crown Prince. Chi Hao's expression trembled. He nodded lightly and disappeared. Yin Dragon Guards, heed my orders. Search for all mysterious people along the Cloud Ocean City. We'd rather capture the wrong person than let them go. Yin Zheng took out a sound transmitting talisman and shouted softly. In the end, he did not say anything more and turned to walk into the room. Fortunately, the soul seal had not fallen into Guyu's hands. This way, he still had time to deal with this disaster. Tomorrow, as long as he could crush Guyu under his feet and expose his scheme in front of all the elites of the Four Dynasties, the Gu Lin Divine Dynasty would be completely destroyed. What? You're saying that I'm spouting nonsense? No matter, Guyu is here. You just have to search his soul, and the truth will be revealed. Now that the soul seal was broken, the evidence was lost, and they were in the Gu Lin territory. If Yin Zheng was too impatient, he would only give Guyu a chance to breathe. What he needed to do was to kill him while he was unprepared and use this as a bait to find the Gone Sky Divine Sect. The young master of the Ling people was right. The Sky Demon was protected by his henchmen. As for me, Yin Zheng, as long as I find the demon's trace and remove the demon feather, it will be a great achievement. The world will praise my name. Outside the courtyard, Ling Xiao looked at Chi Hao, who was leaving in a hurry, with a calm expression. This game of chess had officially begun. Haven't you been waiting for Guyu to save you? Tomorrow, I'll destroy his reputation in front of you and make him die a horrible death. Suddenly, a series of shrill cries resounded from the courtyard. Ling Xiao shook his head slightly, turned around, and vanished into the night. The next day, the sun hung high in the sky, and the entire city fell into an uproar. A bluestone battle platform had been built in front of the city lord's hall. Countless geniuses of the dynasties stood below the platform and waited with anticipation. The duel between the two emperors of the divine dynasties was naturally filled with the smell of gossip. Moreover, Yin Zheng was known as the #1 genius of the four dynasties. Being able to watch him kill his enemies at close range was a blessing for many geniuses. Look, it's Prince Guyu. A straight figure suddenly walked out of the city lord's mansion. His golden imperial robe was embroidered with 9 dragons. He wore a purple crown on his head and had a tall figure. Although he wasn't as handsome as before, he had the majesty of an emperor. At this moment, Guyu was walking calmly on the platform with his hands behind his back. Sigh. Prince Guyu is quite handsome, but his cultivation is too low. I'm afraid he'll be crushed by Yin Zheng today. That's right. Although the prince's spirit is praiseworthy, I'm afraid only the Black Tortoise Crown Prince can fight Yin Zheng. I just hope that Prince Guyu will know what's good for him. He mustn't give up his cultivation path because of a woman. Many geniuses of the ancient dynasties sighed softly with pity between their brows. At this moment, Ling Xiao was sitting in front of the window in a tea house beside the city lord mansion. He was sipping a cup of tea in his hand. Today, the tea house was already empty. Even the singing girl was nowhere to be found. Thump, thump, thump. Suddenly, footsteps sounded from afar. Ling Xiao turned around and saw the plain-clothed girl walking over slowly. Her hair was like a waterfall, and she had a sorrowful expression on her face. But when she saw Ling Xiao, a wisp of surprise flickered in her eyes. Obviously, she hadn't expected that there would be a guest in the tea house. Young master, why didn't you watch the princes fight? Seeing the smile on Ling Xiao's face, the girl mustered up her courage and laughed softly. Her eyes were filled with curiosity. Although she couldn't see the young master's face clearly, he gave off a noble vibe just by sitting there. It made people want to get close to him, but also feel inferior. Isn't it clearer here? Ling Xiao smiled faintly and looked at the girl warmly. Does this tea house belong to you? Just now, he saw that the girl was frowning. Since he was bored, he asked casually, how could I have such a good life? Back then, I owed the owner of the tea house a large amount of spiritual stones. Now, I'm singing to repay my debt. Young master, what do you want to hear today? Oh, selling your body because of debt? Ling Xiao raised an eyebrow. Yesterday, he saw that the girl had 2,000 points of fate. Although it wasn't much, it shouldn't be buried here. How many spiritual stones do you owe the owner? 100. Back then, the owner was kind and helped me bury my late father. This kindness can't be measured by spiritual stones. The plain-clothed girl smiled bitterly. Her jade-like hands stroked the zither. Yesterday, I heard your zither music. It's sweet and clear and has its own rhythm. How about this? I'll go and help me do something. Do you see the people in the gambling house downstairs? Go and bet on Guyu. As a reward, if I win the bet, I'll give you half of it. Ling Xiao casually placed a Chinquin bag on the table and smiled casually. Guyu? This? Young master, are you from the four dynasties? Although Prince Guyu is pure and kind, Crown Prince Yin Zheng is the #1 demon of the four dynasties. Young master, it's fine. I like to be independent. Just do as I say. However, you have to be quick. Otherwise, when Yin Zheng arrives, I won't be able to place my bet. Ling Xiao took a sip of tea. The plain-clothed girl didn't dare to say anything. She picked up the Chinquin bag and bowed slightly. There's no need for a reward for such a small matter. I'll go down and bet on your behalf. After saying that, she actually ran all the way down the stairs. Chapter 1079. Ling Xiao shook his head as he watched the silhouette disappear into the distance. 100 spiritual stones was almost negligible to him. However, this girl had a good character and knew how to repay kindness. She would not accept kindness for nothing. It was a bet. The villa was next to the sea. She had 2,000 spiritual stones and had yet to enter the immortal path. Perhaps this girl would be able to soar to the 9 heavens with just one opportunity. Karma in this world was quite mysterious. Ling Xiao did not give her 100 spiritual stones out of kindness. He only wanted to form a good relationship with her. Even if the girl disappeared in the future, it would not be a loss to him. However, once she realized her talent, she might be a good chess piece. Some favors given when one was weak were much more appreciated than adding flowers to one's prosperity in the future. Young master. Huff, 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 I'm done. After a while, the girl returned to the tea house. Her fair forehead was covered in sweat. Yes. Ling Xiao nodded and did not say anything else. The girl bowed and returned to the stage. She calmed herself down and played the zither in a leisurely manner. Unlike the hustle and bustle outside the tea house, Ling Xiao was not looking forward to the duel at all. He was waiting for the chaos to begin. That was the beginning of his script. The zither's music calmed one's mind. Ling Xiao seemed to be smiling. It was said that a new batch of children of destiny had appeared recently. Their cultivation levels were unparalleled, but they did not know it. They only knew how to play the zither and paint all day. They raised chickens and fed fish. The chickens he raised became inferno, true phoenixes. The fish he fed were actually 9 true dragons? Ha, sir, I felt that we were fated the moment I saw you. Yes, I know you are an ordinary person. Yes, I'm the righteous young master of the Ling people. What? There is a huge difference between our identities. When I, Ling Xiao, make friends, I never look at their identities. Because no one in the Azure world is more noble than me. Come on, sir. Isn't it the same everywhere? I'll find you a beautiful place. You can feed the chickens, raise the fish, play the zither, and paint. No one will disturb you. What? You want to go out and show off? No, you don't. Boom, boom. Suddenly, a terrifying rumble came from the void outside the building. Ling Xiao's eyes focused slightly, yet he noticed that the young woman in plain clothes wasn't disturbed at all. She was just calmly playing the zither, and she seemed to have fallen into a wonderful state. It's Crown Prince Yin Zheng. Crown Prince Yin Zheng is here. The entire city instantly fell into an uproar. The faces of the countless geniuses from the ancient dynasties flickered with intense excitement. In the sky, Yin Zheng sat in his dragon carriage with a sinister smile on his face. He raised his hand and pinched the girl's face. He sneered, "Watch me. Watch how I crush him under my feet and ruin his reputation." With Yin Zheng's personality, he wouldn't fall in love with anyone. He was a villain, after all. Most of the time, he wouldn't fall in love with anyone. However, Su Qingwan had a cold personality. Even when she was imprisoned by him, she still looked absent-minded. The more it was like this, the more Yin Zheng wanted her body and mind. Buzz. Yin Zheng took a step forward. There seemed to be a dragon following him. He landed directly on the battle platform, causing countless cracks to appear on the stone ground. Awesome. This Yin Zheng is probably going to enter the 8th stage of the Exalt realm. Prince Guyu is in danger. The expressions of many geniuses from the ancient dynasties changed when they sensed the terrifying spirit aura surging around Yin Zheng. However, at that moment, Guyu's face was calm. He didn't seem to panic at all. Pretend. Let's see how long you can pretend. Yin Zheng snorted coldly. There seemed to be flames surging in his eyes. Similar to the Golden Crow, the Arch bloodline, the Flame Dragon Divine dynasty also cultivated the Tao of Fire. It was said that the limit of this race's bloodline allowed them to transform their blood into armor. It was called the Flame Dragon Battle Armor, and its power was comparable to a sage artifact. He swung his hair and clenched his fists, transforming into a hero. Yin Zheng, remember our agreement. If you lose today, you will return Qingwan your freedom. Guyu took a deep breath and raised his head to look at the cold and beautiful figure above him. She had lost weight and looked haggard. Qingwan, I'm fighting this battle for you. Even if my body is smashed and my bloodline is destroyed, I will fight for you and change your fate. I lose. Guyu, aren't you overestimating yourself? Yin Zheng shook his head and smiled. In the next instant, his eyes turned sinister. One move is enough to kill you. After he finished speaking, he suddenly raised his arm and clenched it. Blazing flames soared into the sky, and the terrifying heat caused the entire battle platform to collapse in an instant. The space within thousands of miles turned blood red. It was like a sea of fire, exuding a terrifying heat. Ling Zhao's eyes were calm, but his heart was filled with emotions. The four great divine dynasties were indeed the servants of the sacred spirit. Just their bloodline alone was far superior to the ordinary ancient clans. However, he didn't know if he would be able to merge that mysterious golden blood into his body after his demonic body broke through. "Guyu die," Yin Zheng shouted coldly and took a step forward. Around him, the raging flames wriggled and condensed into a ferocious dragon silhouette in the air, suppressing towards Guyu. Wherever the dragon's shadow passed, the space collapsed. Waves of fire connected and blocked Guyu's escape route. It was as if he was in a sea of fire. Seeing this, Guyu's face darkened. Golden light also appeared around him. Then, he clenched his fist and slashed out with an ancient golden saber. Buzz! There was a sudden buzzing sound between heaven and earth. Tao inscriptions overlapped where the saber passed and turned into 3,000 saber essences. They swept out like a wild wind and pressed down furiously. This is too exciting. Is this a battle between geniuses? I didn't expect Prince Guyu to be so powerful. This time, Crown Prince Yin Zheng will have to put in a lot of effort. Boom! However, just when everyone thought that an earth-shattering battle was about to begin, they suddenly heard a strange voice from the fighting ring. Everyone was stunned. Even Guyu had a dumbfounded look on her face. At this moment, he seemed to see Yin Zheng's head explode in the sky. His body fell from the sky and was slashed into pieces by the dazzling saber radiance. But how could this be? Their attacks hadn't even collided. How could Yin Zheng be slashed into pieces? The entire Cloud Sea City suddenly fell into a dead silence. All the geniuses of the ancient dynasties were shocked. Their mouths were agape, and their eyes were wide open. Obviously, they couldn't believe what they had just seen. Crown Prince Yin Zheng was slashed into pieces by Prince Guyu. Somehow, it smelled like a conspiracy. Instantly, many people looked at Guyu with a complicated look in their eyes. With his strength, even if he could fight Yin Zheng, he wouldn't be able to kill Yin Zheng so easily. There must be some sinister means that no one knew about. On the fighting ring, Guyu was stunned. As he watched the saber radiance gradually dissipate, he felt a chill in his heart. Yin Zheng is dead? How'd he die? In an instant, Guyu felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. Cold sweat dripped down from his head. It was obvious that this was a trap that could consign the ancient Qilin divine dynasty to eternal damnation. Beep! The Tao Heart of Providence has been shattered. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 1,000 luck points and 10,000 villain points. Damn it! In the crowd, Qi Hao was shocked and his body trembled violently. After knowing that Guyu had colluded with the Sky Demon, he was extremely wary of Guyu. How could ordinary people understand the means of an evil demon? However, he was only in the exalted realm. How could he kill the crown prince so easily? Could it be that Guyu had been hiding his cultivation level all this time to destroy the flame dragon legacy? Chapter 1080. What is this? Nothing is left of Crown Prince Yin Zheng? This doesn't seem right. The Cloud Sea ancient city fell into chaos. Hearing what they said, Guyu gritted his teeth and dashed toward the city lord's residence. Protect the prince, Qi Hao shouted, but a golden light shone in his hand. Senior Guyu colluded with the demon to kill the crown prince. Come to the Cloud Sea city immediately. Divine light shone in the distant sky. Countless figures in red armor flew over, and they were all filled with killing intent. Qi Hao took a deep breath and chased after Guyu. With the sky demon to rely on, it was reasonable for Guyu to be so fearless. After unifying the four dynasties, Guyu would face the Flame Dragon Empire head-on sooner or later. Now, he killed Yin Zheng openly. He only needed to wait for 1,000 years, and the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty would definitely decline. without shedding a drop of blood. What a vicious plan. What a horrifying plan. Using a woman as an excuse, he colluded with the demon to take over the 4 dynasties. With Yin Zhang's cautiousness, he wouldn't send his guard away easily. Killing him was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. This might be the reason why Guyu challenged him to a battle on the battle platform. Thinking about it, perhaps Su Qingwan was also a pawn in this game. I have to say that it's good to have a brain, because he can expand his thinking according to our plan. What's going on? What's going on? Countless guards rushed out of the city lord's main hall. Seeing the thousands of flame dragon guards descending from the sky, they were also puzzled. Guyu frowned and kept pacing in the main hall. Who dared to plot the death of the flame dragon crown prince and put the blame on him? Obviously, it wasn't done by the righteous path. Could it be the demon that the ancestor mentioned had returned to the human world? Second prince, what's going on? Now, the flame dragon guards are attacking the city lord's main hall under He Yun's lead. The city lord of the clouds, Sea City, stared at Guyu with a solemn expression. Yin Zhang's death could be said to be an upheaval in the 4 dynasties. Once this news reached the Yin Long divine dynasty, Gu Lin would face a real disaster. Among the 4 great divine dynasties, the Flame Dragon Empire and the Black Tortoise Empire had a strong foundation and many experts. Yin Zheng was the only son of the Fire Dragon Emperor. Now that he had been killed by Guyu for no apparent reason, this matter would not end well. I don't know either. Someone set me up. Guyu's head was drenched in cold sweat. He had not sensed that someone had attacked him secretly. Therefore, Yin Zheng should have been poisoned long ago, but the poison acted up when they were fighting. That's right, the soul imprint that Qi Hao had intercepted yesterday contained a wisp of the poison of woe that Ling Xiao had set up. This poison was enveloped by his soul power, so a mere Exalt Realm cultivator would naturally not be able to detect it. Moreover, it was Yin Zheng who had opened his soul sea to check the information in the soul imprint, so he had been caught off guard. Today, when he had fought with Guyu, his soul power and spiritual power had surged violently, and the soul power that had enveloped the poison had naturally been shattered. With his Exalt Realm body, how could he have withstood the poison of woe that was corroding him from the inside out? Poor Crown Prince. He still had many trump cards that could save his life, but he had died an unnatural death just like that. Someone set him up? The city lord of the cloud, Sea City, nodded slowly. Suddenly, he took a deep breath and said, Commander Qi, lead the guards and escort the second prince back to the imperial city through the back door. We will discuss this matter further. Yes. Qi Hao's eyes narrowed, but he snorted in his heart. Discuss this matter further? If the crown prince had been killed in a fair duel, perhaps there would not have been too much of a change. However, the second prince of Gu Lin had colluded with the demon and harbored evil intentions. Later, as long as he captured Guyu and took him back to the Yin Long Divine Dynasty, his ambitions would be exposed. At that time, let's see how you can continue acting. Boom! Boom! Outside the city lord's palace, a mighty spirit aura suddenly surged. A black-robed figure descended from the sky and instantly crushed several guards. Guyu, get the hell out here. Yin, this is my Gu Lin Divine Dynasty. It's not your place to behave atrociously. The city lord of the clouds, Sea City, gripped his saber tightly and stared coldly at the black-robed man. He was Yin Zhang's personal guard, a 7th-grade Saint Realm expert who was quite famous in the 4 divine dynasties. With his cultivation, it was impossible for him to stop him. However, as a subject, it was his duty to protect the borders, kill the enemy, and protect his master. Therefore, the city lord of the cloud, Sea City, couldn't retreat. City lord of the cloud, Sea City. If you don't hand over Guyu today, I'll bury the entire city with my crown prince. Ian roared furiously. He was a personal guard, and now that his master was dead, he could only atone for his crime with his death. However, at this moment, Ian still couldn't figure out where the second prince of the Gu Lin Divine Dynasty got the courage to kill the crown prince of the Gu Lin Divine Dynasty right in front of him. Moreover, while Yin Zheng was arrogant, his strength was at the top of the 4 divine dynasties. So why had he actually died at Guyu's hands? A scheme. There's definitely something wrong with Gu Yu. Oomph. It was a fair battle. Yin Jing's cultivation was insufficient, and he was killed by a prince of my dynasty. Why do you have to act arrogantly here? Soldiers, follow me and kill the invaders. The city lord had a solemn expression on his face, but he didn't speak another word in the end. He just took a step forward and moved to greet Yin. It was useless to explain any further in such a situation. He could only try his best to buy time so that the second prince would have a chance to flee. So long as he could return safely to the imperial capital, then the Yin Long divine dynasty would probably not dare to do anything to him. Boom! The heavens and the earth dimmed while boundless Saint Aura pressed down towards the surroundings. At this moment, the entire city was in chaos, and battle shook the sky. The young woman in plain clothes in the tea house had finished her song. She raised her head and noticed that the figure in front of the window had vanished, and she was stunned. Miss Enine! Miss Enine! An anxious shout suddenly resounded from outside the building. The young woman in plain clothes frowned slightly and stood up to welcome the visitor. The worker from the gambling house had a pale face as he handed her a cosmos bag and a single spirit stone. Miss Enine, the city is in chaos. You should flee. This is... Chu Enine's expression grew more and more confused, but the worker had already turned around and fled. Gu Yu's second prince killed Crown Prince Yanzheng. The city is in big trouble. Here are the 1,000 spirit stones you won, together with the principal. The total is 1,100 spirit stones. When he thought of the young man's dark and deep eyes, the worker's footsteps became even more hurried. What? Chu Enine covered her mouth with her hand. She stood there in a daze, as if she'd been struck by a heavy blow. Miss Chu, the city is in chaos. I have to leave the city to avoid trouble. You should leave as well. The owner of the tea house packed his luggage and ran out from the back hall with his family. Uncle, here are 100 spirit stones. Together with the 30 spirit stones I returned to you earlier, take it as my repayment. Chu Enine carefully picked out 100 spirit stones and handed them to the shopkeeper. Then, she put away the remaining 1,000 spirit stones. Determination suddenly appeared in her beautiful eyes. Young master, no matter where you are, Enine will definitely return these spirit stones to you. Although she didn't remember what the young man looked like, Chu Enine believed that if she saw him again, she would be able to recognize him at first glance. She had a unique talent for music in this world. She would never forget anything she heard. However, she felt guilty because she didn't know her young master's name. On the other side, Ling Zhao's figure was hidden in the void. He looked at Gu Yu, who escaped from the back door of the city lord's mansion, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. Gu Yu had poisoned Yin Zheng, and the inflammation had been removed. Next, the 4 ancient dynasties would definitely fall into chaos. However, as long as Gu Yu didn't die, there would be a flaw in this chess game. Once he fell into the hands of the Yin Long divine dynasty, they would search his soul and find out everything. Of course, he had to be a scapegoat. Only then would there be no mistakes. Extreme light and extreme heat was the only way to die. Chapter 1081. Spirit aura surged through ocean of Cloud City. Numerous golden-armored figures were slaughtered, and blood flowed like an ocean. Countless commoners and cultivators fled in all directions, and their faces were filled with terror. Yin Zheng was dead, and the entire spirit god region would never have another day of peace. At this moment, in a desolate forest 150 kilometers to the west of ocean of Cloud City, Gu Yu was stunned, and his eyes were filled with shock. He'd left in such a hurry that he hadn't even been able to save Su Qingwan. Of course, he couldn't even protect himself right now. Love was truly childish and pitiful in the face of the destruction of the God Dynasty. Second Prince, how exactly did you kill Crown Prince Yanzheng? Chi Hao wore golden armor and had a cold expression on his face. With his strength, it was naturally extremely easy for him to deal with Gu Yu. However, even with his cultivation at the Saint Realm, his heart still trembled when he thought about Yin Zheng's tragic death. For safety's sake, he'd secretly informed He Yun of his whereabouts, and all he had to do was wait for this 7th-rank Saint Realm expert to chase after him so that they could capture the enemy together. How did I kill Yin Zheng? I want to know how I killed Yin Zheng as well. At this moment, Gu Yu's mind was on the verge of collapse. His eyes were blood red, and he emanated a vicious aura like a demon. In your current state, I would believe you even if you told me you were the Sky Demon. Second Prince, rest for a while. We're 150 kilometers away from Ocean of Cloud City. I presume no one will be able to catch up to us for a while. Chihao sighed softly. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a blazing sun suddenly appeared in the sky. After that, a palm of divine radiance smashed down from the sky, and it shattered the sky and covered an area of 50 kilometers. Who is it? Gu Yu's expression shook, and then golden radiance erupted from him. A talisman in his hand emanated waves of divine radiance, and it transformed into the image of an ancient beast that collided with the palm. Bang! At the instant they collided, Gu Yu's figure was already over 10 m away. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were filled with terror. At this moment, the dozens of golden guards who'd escorted him all the way here had been obliterated by the palm. If it wasn't for the ancestors' divine talisman, he would have been killed on the spot. Gu Yu, how dare you poison my crown prince? If I don't take your head today, how will I, He Yun, have the face to return to the Face Emperor? He Yun, dressed in black, stepped down from the sky. Vast saintly might surged out, shattering the barren mountains and turning the ancient trees into ashes. But just as he was about to land in front of Gu Yu, Chihao got up from the ground and stood in front of Gu Yu. At this moment, the eyes of the second prince of the divine dynasty flickered with tears. Commander Chi, you're loyal and brave. Inexplicably, Gu Yu saw a similar figure in this figure. Young master, it has been a few days since we last met. Have you been well? It turned out that there was no lack of loyal and righteous people in this world. It was just that they didn't know how to be righteous until they were in a desperate situation. Senior He, no, Gu Yu can't die. Chihao shouted in shock, but made Gu Yu's expression suddenly become sluggish. Senior He? Gu Yu? Why? He Yun frowned, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Yesterday, Gu Yu colluded with the Sky Demon's vassal. I have the evidence and handed it to the Crown Prince, but I didn't expect that he would still secretly plot against me. Chihao took a deep breath, and his face was filled with resentment. At this moment, Gu Yu, who was behind him, was completely dumbfounded. Colluding with the Sky Demon's vassal? Control the evidence? I'm already in such dire straits. Why do you still want to hit me when I'm down? It turns out, I'm narrow-minded. How can there be someone as righteous as my young master in this world? They're just a bunch of cowardly lackeys. What? Hyun's expression changed. The Sky Demon's vassal was a great deterrent to any force in the Azure Continent. No wonder Gu Yu, the second prince of the Heavenly Dynasty, dared to kill the crown prince of the Heavenly Dynasty so brazenly. So this competition had such a thing to rely on. Nonsense. What did I collude with the demons? Chihao, don't make irresponsible remarks. Gu Yu's face was pale. At this moment, he had guessed that Chihao was most likely a spy that Yin Zheng had planted beside him. But colluding with the demons was pure nonsense. Could it be that Commander Chi was the mastermind behind all this? But he had no background and no power. What was he planning to do by causing chaos in the 4 dynasties? Whether it's true or not, I'll capture you and bring you back to the Yin Dragon Imperial City. Our Emperor will search your soul, and the truth will come to light. Chihao coldly snorted, while He Yun lightly nodded his head. His palm abruptly shot out, clenching furiously towards Gu Yu. Although the Sky Demon's vassal was terrifying, it was not fully formed yet. Moreover, once this vassal force was exposed, it would definitely become the common enemy of the Azure Continent. In this case, he had nothing to worry about. After all, someone had to be responsible for Yin Zheng's death. This was the opportunity for Gu Yu or the Yin Dragon Divine Dynasty to unify the 4 dynasties. No, Faced with the attack of a 7th-grade Saint Realm expert, Guyu did not have the slightest strength to resist. He could only watch as the palm fell from the sky and confined the space, enveloping his body. Beep. The son of destiny has lost all hope, and his heart is filled with despair. Congratulations to host for plundering 2,000 luck points and 20,000 villain points. However, at this moment, a rapid, buzzing sound came from the void. Then, a tall figure broke through the void and blocked Guyu's path. It was a terrifying, demonic figure that was 10 feet tall. He was clad in battle armor and was surrounded by the aura of death. His face was covered by a silver ghost mask. He clenched his fist and punched out, shattering He Yun's attack in an instant. As for his body, he was also sent flying several meters away. However, he was not injured in the slightest. However, for some reason, Guyu felt that the aura of death on this demonic figure was somewhat familiar. It seemed to be the same as the Supreme Corpse Demon in the Supreme Secret Realm back then. Demon, He Yun and Chi Hao looked at each other, fear flashing in their eyes. Before they could react, the demonic figure had already rushed to Guyu's side, grabbed him, and fled madly into the distance. You are indeed colluding with the demon. Guyu, let's see where you can run to. He Yun coldly shouted. Just as he took a step forward and was about to chase after the two, demonic clouds once again gathered above his head and pressed down on him. Damn it, this demon has an accomplice. He Yun's expression turned cold. He hurriedly raised his hand to stop the demonic clouds. At this moment, he could feel the aura of a 4th-grade Saint Realm expert flashing in the depths of the demonic clouds and fleeing into the distance. Trying to escape? Commander Hao, you go after Guyu. I will go after this demon. He Yun didn't hesitate at all, and his figure suddenly disappeared from the spot. A look of hesitation appeared on Chi Hao's face. In the end, he gritted his teeth and slowly chased after Guyu. Senior you think too highly of me, don't you think? I'm only a 1st-grade Saint Realm expert. The Crown Prince could probably kill me if he used all his strength. You want me to chase after the demon? You saw it. I did chase after him. But what can I do if I can't catch up? After all, Guyu's collusion with the Sky Demon was confirmed. With He Yun and He Yun's testimony, the Emperor had no choice but to believe it. Buzz. The sound of wind breaking suddenly resounded in the void thousands of miles away. However, even though He Yun was a 7th-grade Saint Realm expert, he could only feel the demonic aura in the distance and disappear instantly. How is this possible? Damn it! He Yun was stunned. A wisp of fear flashed in his eyes. In the end, he did not dare to stay any longer. He summoned the Yin Dragon Guards and rushed towards the Yin Dragon Empire. He had to report everything that happened in the city to the Emperor as soon as possible so that he could make a decision as soon as possible. Chapter 1082. In the realm, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back. Shurpatian and Xiong Huan stood quietly behind him. In front of them, Guyu looked confused and frowned. He didn't know why, but he felt that the figure in front of him was very familiar. Prince Guyu, how have you been? When Ling Xiao turned around and looked at Guyu gently, the latter's eyebrows twitched and his mouth opened in disbelief. Young master, what are you doing here? Could it be? Guyu's eyes were filled with shock. She suddenly bowed towards Ling Xiao and said, Thank you, young master, for saving me from the devil's hands once again. Even now, Guyu still couldn't figure out why Lord Ling Xiao had such a powerful demon by his side. But it didn't matter, with young master's sacred name, as long as he stood by his side to prove his innocence. Even if the Flame Dragon Emperor came personally, what could he do? Looking at the grateful figure in front of him, the corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up into a smile. The reason why he ordered Xiong Huan to attack at the last moment was to confirm that Guyu didn't have any other life-saving trump cards. Now, it seemed that the second prince of the Divine Dynasty was a turtle in a jar. Seal his spiritual power and keep an eye on him, Ling Xiao said indifferently and turned to leave before Guyu could get up. Hearing this, Gu Yu's expression almost froze again. In an instant, he seemed to have thought of something. When he looked at the black-robed figure again, there was nothing but fear in his eyes. Beep! The destined child's Tao heart has been shattered. Congratulations to the host for plundering 2,000 luck points and 20,000 villain points. Hearing the system's notification, Ling Zhao's expression was calm, and he suddenly disappeared. What? Why didn't he kill Gu Yu to prevent future trouble? Did you forget that the key to opening the seal of the 4 dynasties is the blood essence of people with emperor bloodlines? Although Gu Yu's cultivation was not on par with Jin Yan's, he was still a prince of the divine dynasty. It should be enough to stuff him in, right? The spirit god realm was completely shaken. In just one day, the news of Yin Zheng's death had spread throughout the 4 dynasties. All the clans and powers fell into a state of terror. Obviously, they'd expected that this region would fall into a storm of blood. At this moment, outside the soaring dragon city of the Flame Dragon Imperial City, Ling Xiao stood on the peak of a green mountain with his hands behind his back. He held a divine sound transmission talisman in his hand as he raised his head to look at the lofty, ancient city that towered into the clouds in the distance. Just now, he had sent a letter to Chun Qing Shan, asking him to lure the Gone Heaven Divine sect here to collect the blood spirits and find the sky in underworld disk. This way, when the Flame Dragon and Gu Lin fell into a chaotic battle, he could secretly break the seal of the 2 dynasties and seize the underworld disk. By the time the 2 dynasties reacted, it would be too late. By then, as the young master of the Ling people, he would order the Wugo Dao body to personally lead the Black Demon Guards to quell the chaos. At the same time, he would capture a few disciples of the divine sect and hand them over to the people of the 4 dynasties to check their divine souls. This would make the world believe that all this was caused by the divine sect. Once the conspiracy was exposed, the Holy Infant would definitely speed up the process and activate the blood sacrifice array. Ling Xiao would then be able to find the divine sect and kill this evil demon for the world. Everything was under his control. Do you think this is the end? Childish. Since the demon's traces have been exposed, the experts of the 4 dynasties will definitely be terrified. Don't worry, as the young master of the Taigu Ling people, how can I sit back and do nothing? As long as I show the slightest intention to protect the 4 dynasties, these people would scramble to submit to me. In order to prevent the other immortal forces from panicking and searching for the sky demon by hook or by crook, Ling Xiao purposely left the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty's underworld disk behind. As long as this evil treasure did not fall into the demon's hands, what was there to worry about? As for the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty, this Divine Dynasty not only opposed the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty, but also had the ambition to dominate the 4 dynasties. As soon as the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty made a move, they naturally would not sit back and watch the ancient Lin Divine Dynasty be destroyed and swallowed by the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty. The human heart was greedy by nature. The Black Tortoise Crown Prince had been coveting Jin Han for a long time. In this chaotic situation, Ling Xiao only needed to give him some pressure, and this 300-year-old bootlicker would obediently fall into the trap. What does the chaos of the 4 dynasties have to do with me? Once the fortune is in my hands, my holy name will be praised. Wang. Just as Ling Xiao was pondering how to make the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty feel pressured, a demonic brilliance suddenly surged in the realm. Thousands of miles of demonic clouds covered the heaven and earth, and layers of demonic shadows appeared in the sky. An infinite amount of demonic energy rolled out. Inside the demonic energy, there seemed to be a beautiful figure stretching her waist. For some reason, she exuded a sense of seduction. Ling Zhao's face bloomed into a smile. With a thought, the shadow appeared in front of him and bowed to him. "My lord." "Not bad." Ling Xiao nodded slightly and sized up the shadow. 6th grade, Venerable Realm. Although this Huanma was still some distance away from the peak, at this juncture, she was the most suitable person to set up the 4 dynasties. "Shadow, choose a few secret guards, and sneak into the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty. When the time is right, spread the rumor that after the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty destroyed Guilin, they will gather the forces of 2 dynasties to attack the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty. In the end, with 3 dynasties in hand, they will destroy the Black Tortoise Divine Dynasty and unify the 4 dynasties. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Then, he seemed to have thought of something. Although the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty is domineering and will most likely take this opportunity to conquer the Spirit God realm, just in case, go to the vicinity of the Flame Dragon Emperor Palace and keep an eye on anyone who might be sending messages to the other 2 dynasties. If there is any movement, send me a message. Yes. Stack's shadow bowed and disappeared. According to Ling Xiao's guess, Yin Zheng was dead, and the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty's inheritance was broken. Under such circumstances, they would most likely fight with their backs to the wall to seize the hegemony of this realm. Otherwise, even if they destroyed Guilin and suppressed the Sky Demon's vassal, it would be meaningless even though they had obtained the supreme holy name. If this continued for another 1,000 years, the dynasty would definitely decline. After all, a monstrous genius like Yin Zheng would not appear easily. Of course, since it was just a guess, he had to be prepared. With Shadow watching the Emperor Palace closely, even if the Flame Dragon Emperor did not have the guts to send messengers to the Black Tortoise and Golden Crow realms, Ling Xiao could intercept the midway, just in case. In the worst case, the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty had the sound transmission treasures of the other 3 dynasties. Once the Golden Crow realms received the news, Ling Xiao would know and respond accordingly. With all the chess pieces in place, he only needed to wait quietly. When the experts of the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty came out, he should prepare to seize the underworld plate that was sealed in this dynasty. At the same time, in the Flame Dragon Emperor Palace, many figures with terrifying auras were sitting in the hall. In front of the hall, He Yun and Chi Hao were kneeling on the ground in fear, their hearts filled with the desire to die. The 2 of them were the guards of the Crown Prince, Yin Zheng. Now that the latter had died in the ancient Lin Divine Dynasty, this crime was unforgivable. Are you saying that the 2nd prince of the ancient Lin Divine Dynasty colluded with the Demon Emperor and killed Zheng? Asked a majestic middle-aged man sitting on a golden chair. He was dressed in an imperial robe and looked dignified. Around his body, raging flames swept out. His eyes were also filled with monstrous divine flames, filled with boundless killing intent. This person was the Flame Dragon Emperor, the true overlord of the 4 dynasties, the Flame Emperor Temple. Chapter 1083. That's right. Emperor, that's not all. Gu Yu is ambitious and wants to collude with the Sky Demon to destroy the 4 dynasties and steal the items sealed in the 4 dynasties. Below the hall, Chi Hao's entire body trembled. At this moment, he felt a strand of heavenly might descend with a bang, and it almost crushed him on the spot. You don't know what's good for you. Where's Gu Yu? Senior He and I had originally trapped him. Unexpectedly, at the final moment, a great devil appeared and rescued him. You saw everything with your own eyes? The Emperor Yanlong's eyes were gloomy. Chi Hao kowtowed and said, "It's true. Senior He and I saw everything with our own eyes. If there is any falsehood in my words, my soul will be destroyed and I will never be reincarnated." Good. Since that's the case, let me see which great demon has the guts to protect the Sky Demon and wreak havoc on the world. As soon as he finished speaking, a soul light suddenly bloomed in the Emperor Yanlong's eyes. Before Yin Hao could react, he felt a heavenly might suddenly fall and sweep into his soul's sea, shattering his soul consciousness completely. Burp. It was a pity that Commander Hao, a dignified Saint Realm expert, had surrendered himself to the enemy, yet his spirit was instantly destroyed, and he was reduced to a retard. How is it? Beside the Emperor Yanlong, an old man with white hair and a beard suddenly opened his eyes. The space of the entire palace shattered in an instant. Vaguely, A flame dragon appeared in the sky and stood in the clouds, looking down on the world. This was the only heavenly supreme patriarch of the Yanlong divine court, Yin Luopa. However, unlike Jin Yuyang, the flame dragon ancestor's qi and blood were vigorous, and his vitality was at its peak. Every move he made contained a supreme power, and his strength could suppress the 4 dynasties. He was a third-grade heavenly sovereign. Patriarch, this person is right. Guyu did collude with the sky demon. This demonic sect is called the Gone Heaven Divine Sect. The Emperor Yanlong got up and bowed. When he looked up again, his eyes were bloodshot. Patriarch, the ancient Qilin divine court is seeking its own destruction. Patriarch, please give the order to conquer this dynasty. This is a serious matter. We can't be careless. The flame dragon ancestor shook his head slightly, with a hint of seriousness between his brows. For some reason, he felt that Guyu was being too arrogant. Was he really not afraid of Yanlong's revenge and dared to kill Yin Zheng in public? Or was this all part of his plan? He had been waiting for the flame dragon divine dynasty to attack Guilin so that he could collude with the demon society and destroy the flame dragon divine dynasty. Ancestor, are you worried that the Gone Heaven divine sect will join hands with the ancient Qilin divine dynasty? Emperor Yanlong took a deep breath. Old ancestor, if this sect is really not afraid of our dynasty, I'm afraid that Yin Hao and He Yun will not be able to escape. I think that no matter how cautious the Gone Tian holy sect is, they would not have expected that Yin Hao is a spy that our dynasty placed beside Guyu. Now that Yin Hao's identity has been exposed, if we hesitate, the ancient Qilin holy dynasty will be prepared. Why don't we take this opportunity to attack the ancient Qilin imperial city and catch them by surprise? You mean? Ancestor Yanlong frowned and thought for a while before nodding. That's right. Just now, he thought that Guyu was being too arrogant, but he neglected one point. Yin Hao already knew that this person was colluding with the demon society. If not, the battle between the two of them would be unpredictable. Even if Yanlong was furious, he would not easily start a war between the 2 dynasties. In the end, this matter would most likely be left unsettled. Once Yin Zheng died, the Flame Dragon Divine dynasty's inheritance would be broken. The Sky Demon's henchmen would only need to wait for an opportunity to plot against that evil treasure. Not to mention 1,000 years. Even 10,000 years was just a snap of the fingers for someone like the Sky Demon. If he hesitated any longer, once the Sky Demon's wings were fully developed, it would be the real crisis for Yanlong. In that case, now is the last chance for Yanlong to unify the 4 dynasties and consolidate their foundation. As long as Guilin was destroyed, the Yin Dragon clan would be able to suppress the Black Tortoise sect with the foundation of the 2 dynasties. As for the Golden Crow Divine Dynasty, they could be destroyed with a wave of the hand. Once the 4 dynasties were unified, he might be able to regain control of the immortal treasure and reach the supreme realm. At the very least, Yanlong Divine Dynasty would have the strength to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Azure Immortal Force. The ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty had the ambition of protecting the Sky Demon. It was reasonable for them to be destroyed. Hesitation would only lead to defeat. Moreover, the current situation did not allow Yanlong to hesitate. If so, then let's fight. Yanlong ancestor nodded indifferently. The last trace of hesitation in his eyes disappeared instantly. Pass down my order. My Yanlong army will gather and attack the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty's capital, Auspicious Light City. All the experts above the Saint Realm will follow me. Into Guilin, Huangguan, you will personally guard the Imperial City and activate the Imperial Protective Array. Do not let anyone enter the city. This way, we can ensure that nothing goes wrong. With Yanlong ancestor's temperament, even if he had already made up his mind, he did not dare to take any risks. No matter, what was the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty and Gone Sky Divine sect planning? He had to personally lead the battle. Even if the Sky Demon came, what could he do? The bigger the battle, the more likely that Demon's henchmen would not dare to show themselves. After all the forces in the Azure world were looking for the Sky Demon. Once the Imperial Protective Array was activated, even Heavenly Supremes would not be able to break it easily. Moreover, since the Sky Demon could be severely injured by the combined efforts of the Ling people's Young Master and Young Master Shui, his cultivation and demonic aura must not be present. In this way, the 4 dynasties would be within their reach. Time is of the essence. Let's go. Yinlong Ancestor was also decisive. He took a step forward and left in a flash. Behind him, many Yinlong Sacred Realm experts also had a ferocious battle intent on their faces. Unifying the 4 dynasties was a great achievement. In the Spirit God Realm, there should only be one monarch clan, and that was his Yinlong tribe. Looking at the dozens of figures disappearing into the distance, Yinlong Emperor hesitated for a moment. In the end, he still followed the ancestors' instructions and issued a decree to seal the city. At the same time, he activated the Imperial Protective Array to cover the entire Imperial Palace. Instantly, the Yinlong Divine Dynasty was stirred up. Countless war horses galloped past, kicking up a cloud of dust. My lord, 1 Heavenly Supremes and 2 Earthly Supremes from the Yinlong tribe have left the palace with 11 Saint Realm experts. But Yinlong Emperor is not included. Layered Shadow's voice came from the Soul Sea. Ling Xiao smiled brightly and strode toward the soaring dragon ancient city. From the memory of Jinyang Soul Sea, Ling Xiao already knew that there was only 1 Heavenly Supremes in each of the 4 dynasties. Yin Luopa, the Yinlong Ancestor, had the highest cultivation, which was at the 3rd grade realm. Xuanwu Ancestor was 2nd, who was at the peak of the 2nd grade realm. Jin Yang and Ancient Scale Ancestor were at the 2nd grade realm, so the 2 dynasties were relatively weak. Now that all the Yinlong sovereigns had left, the Yinlong Emperor was only at the Saint realm. Naturally, Ling Xiao was not intimidated at all. When his figure disappeared into the void and landed in the city, he looked at the golden array that covered the sky, and a sinister smile flashed in his eyes. Fortunately, Yinlong Ancestor had left him a monarch clan bloodline. Otherwise, he would not know how to open the first seal of the underworld plate. Now, it seemed that the plot was developing according to his expectations, and there were no surprises. The 4 great dynasties should become a thing of the past. Pickled cucumber? Pickled radish? Puffed. I'm still a flaming duck. Chapter 1084. Boom, boom, boom. Dark clouds gathered in the Spirit God realm, and there was an oppressive feeling of an impending downpour. Countless ancient sects sealed their mountain gates in hopes of avoiding this calamity. At this moment, in the golden hall of the ancient Qilin God dynasty's Emperor Palace, a dignified middle-aged man in a golden robe frowned as he looked at the dark clouds in the distance. His heart was filled with shock and anger. He could not understand why his gentle and intelligent second son would be so reckless and childish to kill the flame dragon crown prince, Yin Zheng, in front of everyone. Moreover, if you killed him, you should at least pretend that you were no match for him. Then, you could kill him before you died. That way, people would not gossip about you. However, the number 1 monster of the 4 dynasties, the 7th grade exalted realm Yin Zheng, was killed by Gu Yu with a single slash. It was said that there was nothing left of him. Even the ancient Qilin God Emperor did not believe it. How could there be nothing fishy about this? Have you found Yue yet? Emperor, not yet. A middle-aged man in golden armor shook his head. His eyes trembled as he hesitated to speak. Just say it. There is no need for the both of us to hide anything. The ancient Qilin God Emperor frowned and said in a deep voice, Emperor, Yin Zheng has died in our ancient Qilin God dynasty. I'm afraid the Flame Emperor Monastery will not let this matter rest. Why don't you send me to the border to prevent any changes? A wisp of holy aura surged around the middle-aged man in golden armor. He was an 8th grade exalted realm expert. If we send troops now, the Flame Dragon Crown Prince will be suspicious. The most important thing now is to find Yue and ask her how she killed Yin Zheng. Humph. The two of them fought a fair battle. Yin Zheng's death can only be attributed to his cultivation. Boom! Before the ancient Qilin God Emperor could finish his sentence, a mighty divine aura surged from the void. Then, an unparalleled, murderous aura descended from the sky and destroyed the entire ancient Qilin Emperor Palace. A sea of fire appeared in the void. The terrifying scarlet color caused the entire auspicious Light Emperor city to fall into a state of panic. Damn it! Who is it? Emperor Gulin was startled. He took a step forward and appeared in front of the hall. Then, he was stunned to see a 100-meter-long flame dragon soar through the sky with the power to destroy the 9 heavens and crash into the imperial city. This aura, it's a heavenly supreme. At this moment, Emperor Gu Lin's expression changed drastically, and his eyes were filled with terror and shock. He had never dreamed that the Yinlong Holy Court would be so unscrupulous. Just because of Yin Zheng, the Yinlong Holy Court had sent an army to start a war between the two dynasties. Or could it be that the current situation was actually deliberately planned by the Yinlong Divine Dynasty, and that Crown Prince Yin Zheng was merely a sacrifice? What kind of courage was this? Using the inheritance of the Flame Dragon as a wager to fight for the unification of the 4 dynasties? Yin Luopa, how dare you? Buzz. In the depths of the imperial palace, an ancient and powerful aura began to awaken. Immediately after, a golden Rue Qilin phantom that looked like it was cast from gold stepped through the air. Around its body, golden scales shone with endless divine radiance. Auspicious clouds surged under its feet, and thousands of rays of light shone. Thousands of divine elephants filled the sky above the imperial city. The originally panicked crowd calmed down the moment they saw the Rue Qilin. Everyone could not help but smile, and their eyes were filled with sincerity. Many commoners knelt down on the street and began to chant. The 4 dynasties used the 4 mythical beasts as their totems. In the eyes of the people of the 4 dynasties, the appearance of the 4 mythical beasts was a miracle. However, the moment the Rue Qilin phantom collided with the flame dragon, the entire sky shattered. Countless streams of fire fell from the sky and smashed into the imperial city, setting it ablaze. I'm dead. Run. It's the end of the world. With Yin Luo Po's strength, even a casual palm print could not be withstood by mere mortals. In fact, a trace of the flame power from the flame dragon was enough to easily incinerate living beings. Boom, boom, boom. The entire auspicious light city fell into chaos. Flames filled the sky, and the palace was destroyed. It really looked like the end of the world. Yin Luopa, how dare you? In the depths of the imperial palace, 3 figures stepped through the void and stood in the sky above the temple, facing the people of the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty from afar. Behind the 3 of them, Emperor Gulin and a group of Saint Realm experts soared into the sky and stood quietly. Their eyes were filled with fear and shock. They had guessed that the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty would seek revenge for Yin Zheng's death. However, heavenly sovereigns had not interfered in the affairs of the human world for tens of thousands of years, let alone the 4 dynasties. At this level, the so-called power and influence had already become meaningless. Stepping on the top of the world and becoming an emperor was what they wanted. They did not expect that the Flame Dragon ancestor would personally lead the experts here today. Without any courtesy, they attacked with devastating force. Guduan, you old fart. I didn't expect you to be so useless as you live. You actually colluded with the demons. Yin Luopa stood proudly in the void. His eyes were like a sea of fire, and his scorching aura caused the space within 100 feet of him to shatter and overlap, forming countless dark ravines. Colluding with the demons? Emperor Gu Lin snorted, and his eyes were full of sarcasm. Yin Luopa, the ancestors of the 4 dynasties, originally came from the same source. Although we have separated, why do you have to be so hypocritical? Colluding with the demons. So the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty intends to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens? The four dynasties were guarding the spirit god realm in order to suppress the evil treasure. Even now, the four dynasties had the ambition to fight for hegemony, but they had never forgotten their mission. Colluding with the demons was no different from betraying the ancestors. Haha, Goodwin, if I can show you the evidence of your ancient Lin dynasty colluding with the demons, what will you do? Yin Luopa smiled eerily and looked coldly at Emperor Gulin. If you want to condemn someone, why worry about the pretext? Yin Luopa, this is the ancient Lin imperial city, not your soaring dragon city. Do you really think you can do whatever you want? Emperor Gulin snorted. With his cultivation level, he might not be Yin Luopa's match. But this was the ancient Lin imperial palace, and there were many methods left behind by the ancient Lin ancestors. Even if the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty had many experts, Gulin might not lose here. You want to condemn me? Yin Luopa nodded slowly. He suddenly clenched his fist, and a figure was instantly caught in his hand. It was Qi Hao, whose divine soul had been searched by Emperor Yin Long. You should know this person, right? Commander Qi. Emperor Gulin was stunned, and then his expression changed. I was really captured by you. Ha ha ha. Your ancient Lin clan is really good at acting. Forget it. Yin Luopa shook his head and smiled. In the next moment, he clenched his fist, and it turned into a ferocious dragon claw, crushing Qi Hao's head. Then, an ancient bronze mirror appeared in the void, and Qi Hao's memories flashed in it. The soul-searching mirror, this thing can't be fake, right? Ancient Lin clan, today, you must give Qing Song an explanation. Chapter 1085. What? This is... The ancient Qilin Imperial Palace was dead silent. Intense shock and astonishment appeared on all the experts' faces. They could see Qi Hao's memories unfolding like a scroll. At first, they still felt hatred because of Qi Hao's identity as a spy. However, as the spiritual imprint appeared, Yin Zheng's expression turned solemn and fearful. In the end, Guyu was rescued by two demonic figures dressed in black robes. Even the ancient scale ancestor's face turned pale when he saw this. Guduin, what else do you have to say? Yin Luopa snorted. This soul-searching ancient mirror was the most precious treasure of the Flame Dragon clan. It could search through one's divine soul memories, and there was no way to fake it. Qi Hao's memories have been seen by all the cultivators and citizens in the ancient Qilin imperial city. It was almost confirmed that Guyu had colluded with the demon race and killed Yin Zheng. What? What is going on? Gu Duin turned around and looked at the ancient Qilin emperor. The latter was also shocked and confused. Old ancestor, I don't know. You don't know? You're about to die, and you still dare to be stubborn. The ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty protected the Sky Demon and tried to steal the item sealed by the four dynasties. Today, the Flame Dragon clan will enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and destroy the ancient Qilin Imperial clan. We swear to fight the demon race to the end. Yin Luopa shouted angrily. All the experts in the ancient Qilin Imperial clan turned pale. What? The Sky Demon? Even if Yin Zheng was killed by Guyu and angered the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty, the two dynasties would at most fight and kill a few people. After a while, the matter would be settled and the Flame Dragon Divine Dynasty would forget about it. However, colluding with the demon race and the Sky Demon would make the ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty the common enemy of the Azure Continent. Yin Luopa, Yin Zheng is dead and Guyu is colluding with the demon race. The ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty will find out the truth and give the Flame Dragon clan an explanation. However, you cannot speak carelessly. Protect the Sky Demon. How would my ancient Qilin Divine Dynasty dare to go against our ancestral teachings? Even though Gu Duin was a second-grade heavenly sovereign, he felt a chill run down his spine and almost died on the spot. The ancient Qilin Dynasty was not even a supreme power. How could they collude with the Sky Demon? Gulp. If this matter were to spread out, Gu Lin would no longer have a tomorrow. Gu Duin, If you want to prove your innocence, why don't you ask you to come out and see what's going on with him as a sole explorer? No matter how scheming Yin Luo Po was, he would never have imagined that everything before his eyes was deliberately set up by someone. In his opinion, the ancient Qilin God dynasty would never dare to hand over Guyu. Otherwise, they would be accused of harboring the sky demon. Guyu is not in court. We are also looking for him. Emperor Gu Lin gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, "Ha ha, I knew it. Since that's the case, Gu Duan, it has been 10,000 years. Let me see how much demonic power you have cultivated." Yin Loapa extended both of his hands and slowly rose into the air. Crimson flames began to swirl around his body as a deafening dragon roar reverberated through the surroundings, shaking the surroundings. It actually shattered the minds of many of the Imperial Palace's guards who had stepped into the realm of God Emperors, causing them to fall to the ground and die. Flame Dragon Battle Armor. The group of ancient Qilin Imperial clans experts widened their eyes. They felt despair in their hearts. When one reached the Heavenly Sovereign Realm, the difference between each grade was like heaven and earth. Moreover, the Flame Dragon Imperial Dynasty had 2 earthly sovereigns and 11 saints. However, the ancient Qilin Dynasty only had 1 earthly sovereign and 10 saints. Comparing the two, Gu Lin had no chance of winning this battle. Activate the Protective Clan Grand Array and face the enemy. Gu Duan sighed softly. He still could not figure out how a mere Gu Yu could be related to the Sky Demon. However, since things had come to this, the ancient Qilin dynasty could only resist Yin Luo Pa and the others. They would then find a way to find Gu Yu to prove their innocence. Yes, old ancestor. Hearing that, the fear on the faces of Gu Lin and the others instantly dissipated. Instead, it was replaced by a solemn expression. Boom! Above the imperial palace, golden rays of light started to surge. A golden light array that encompassed the entire imperial palace appeared in the sky. The runes on the array fluctuated and evolved into countless strange phenomena. An ancient aura was revived. An illusory image of a Rue Qilin stood at the top of the sky, overlooking the common people. In the pair of bright eyes that had experienced the vicissitudes of life, there was a dim sense of loss. Oof. You won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. Yin Luo clenched his fist. A flaming saber suddenly appeared in his hand. He then slashed it at the golden light array. Boom! Boom! The void within 10,000 miles instantly shattered. An endless sea of fire covered the sky and turned the world red. Wherever the saber light passed, runes appeared. The aura of the great Tao spread. It was vast and majestic. It was as if someone was being punished. Boom! The entire auspicious light city collapsed in an instant. Under the attack of a heavenly sovereign, the physical bodies of all living beings that were not in the array were instantly shattered. Fresh blood splattered and dyed the ground red. However, even though Yin Luo Pa attacked with all his might, he could not completely destroy the ancient array. Instead, the fluctuating golden light on the array forced him to take a few steps back. His aura fluctuated. Kill! Gu Duan's eyes narrowed. His figure suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was above Yin Luo Pa. He struck out with his palm. There seemed to be tens of thousands of runes on his palm. A majestic pressure descended with an aura that could destroy the world. You're courting death. Yin Luo Pa's eyes narrowed. He swung his saber and instantly clashed with Gu Duan. Boom! Boom! When two heavenly sovereigns fought, even an earthly sovereign powerhouse would find it difficult to interfere, let alone a saint. Within 1,000 miles of the two, even the void was completely shattered. It turned into a black hole crack that swallowed all the spiritual radiance and light. At this moment, the dozen or so saints also clashed above the imperial palace. Spiritual power fluctuated, and the heavenly law no longer existed. Dazzling divine radiance bloomed continuously, and there was a kind of fear that made one's soul tremble. At the same time, suddenly, countless crimson-armored figures appeared at the border of the Gu Lin divine dynasty. They were densely packed and filled with murderous intent. In fact, before the Gulin city guards could react, they saw countless crimson-armored figures descending from the sky. They waved their sabers and slaughtered all the living beings. Blood mist shook and spiritual treasures fell. It was a beautiful and tragic scene. In Soaring Dragon City, Ling Xiao sat in a tea house. Immortal clouds covered his face as he gently sipped his tea. He looked at the grandfather-grandchild pair, playing the pipa and singing a song on the stage. His expression was calm and indifferent. The secret guards in Auspicious Light City had already sent news. However, it was impossible for a battle of this level to end in a day or two. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to attack the Fire Dragon Emperor. After all, the most important person in this game of chess was still missing. Guyu. Chen Qingshan had already led the disciples of the Gone Sky Divine sect to the spirit god territory. However, there was no evidence of collusion with Guyu in these people's soul seas. Even if Ling Xiao sent them to the ancestors of the four dynasties to search their souls, he would not be able to prove Guyu's crimes. Therefore, Ling Xiao was waiting for Chen Qingshan to arrive. This way, he could completely complete the game. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.